Choo choo.
I remember getting dropped one time and joining the rob by an accident.
What is happening? Back with more Resident Evil 6 tonight. What is the story, folks? Oh, there's Hooke just checking on. What is the crack? Yeah, so last time we got through the first of Leon's campaigns. Leon and I forget what her name is. I forget what her name is. Everybody's over there spamming the checking for Hooks to see if they can get their power level up. I'm 27k. I am fucking winning the day at the moment. But what is the crack, McKins? What is the crack, Steam Train? What is the story? So yeah, the plan for the night is to play a little bit more Resident Evil. See how far we can get. I know that from what I've been told, Leon's campaign's the longest, but gonna go through and see how far we get on them, because I think it's like 20, 30 hours, I think, for the whole thing. So they get less and less as you go. But you know what? It's a bit jank at some points. It's a bit glitchy, but I'm enjoying it. It's good fun so far. But it is also hump day. It is halfway through the week. He's ready. Right, okay. Go ahead, pop overnight. Hey, yo, what's the crack? Yeah, yeah. We were. It was good banter. We used up all our banter before we went live. That was it. Jesus, she's ready that quick. Richards, you know, I've had a penny for the amount of times I heard that. I am just in general. You're 7'3". You know, that's what it is. We wanted to make it realistic looking. You did? Yeah, you were down in Dublin and everything. But very good. I don't mind. I don't mind. I don't mind a bit of Maroon 5. I think they're alright, you know. Enjoy them. Hmm. Yeah, I don't believe you. Yeah. Now, are they as good as that band that Waffles had? Who's with? See, when your man came down to the dance floor and all started, man, that was class. I know. Guitar Hero. You put the batteries in. Now, when he started going red, green, red, 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 green, red, green, blue, orange, that's when it gave it away. That was the problem.
7 minutes. 7 minutes is all I can
Tomahawk.
spare to play with you.
Tomahawk, we need to talk to you. What is the crack with this Sony announcing discless? Discless? That's a difficult word, isn't it? My goodness. My goodness. Like you know what? You know what? This this is the exact reason why it's a bad thing, right? Right, as you can see, this is Transformers Devastation. This game is delisted because of the rights of Activision don't have the rights to it anymore. If the digital version of that game goes, there is no other way of playing it apart from piracy. They're pushing people to piracy. I'm a bit lost for words, but I mean, very well. I've been struggling to put my thoughts into words. Hopefully, the backlash will make them turn around on it because I think it's silly. I like physical media. Like, admittedly, I love a Steam sale as well. I will download loads digitally, but there's the odd games. Like, see, like probably yourself with Halo. If when Halo comes out, you like a physical copy because that's your collection. You like to display them. You like to look at them. Xbox will go the same way. I think so. I think so. I think it would. I think if they went the other way and said, if you want physical games, come to Xbox, it would be a very strong move. I don't think it would benefit them financially because Sony is right. The market share is digital at the moment. People are. Mhm. Yeah. And there was some news last week about Grand Theft Auto. You don't get a physical copy, a physical disc. You get a download code inside a box. No. And yeah, I don't think so. No. Yeah, the DRM. Yeah, Chrissy, what's happening? Has Sony hired Don Matrick? Is that what's happened? Um, like look, let me just point it out again. Look at this game, right? I own this game digitally on the Xbox. But when it was delisted, I didn't have it downloaded in my console. I can't download it anymore. I had to buy a physical copy. I don't mind getting a physical copy of it, but that's the way it's going to go now. We're going to have to open a business, Hooke. We're going to have to open a business where people, we get a ISO file of the game that they want. We burn them a physical copy. We'll do that. The indoor market, I like it. I like it. And it's financially they're getting rid of pre-owned. Everybody has to buy a new copy of the game, and they can sell for whatever price they want. Sorry, Flamish's song's playing. Flamish, what's happening? Business name Gadget Hooks Change. Gadget Hooks Change. It's annoying because I've went physical recently. Yeah. You're gonna have to. You have a year now. They back up or get as much physical copies as you can now. Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and businesses as well. Look at the likes of CX. They're going to be gone. 2034. It'll be the enhanced 8K version. Game's gone. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get the store game. The game has been gone for a while. It's a shell of what it used to be. It can be, yeah. Look, can't they all remind me to come on a game and day? Hook is muted. Is he? Am I? Oh no, you're not coming through in Discord. Why are you not coming through in Discord? Oh, that has reset itself again. Right, go and
For
say
God's
something. Hook.
sake.
There, it's working now.
Test.
Yeah,
Good
yeah,
man,
working
Flemish.
now.
Letterkenny a detour to Dublin. Hardly a detour, unless a tornado swept you. Yeah, we were halfway home, and I was like, let's go to Letterkenny. And the pennies and stuff, and punched it into the sat nav. Knew where it was going, but I wanted to see what the distance was, and it was the same. Like it was the same time, so I thought that fuck it, began. You can hear me, yeah. You're in my stream, McKins. You're watching on going by chat here. You're watching in my chat, so that'll be fine. I think it was on Leyoric stream. They couldn't hear me.
McKinn's,
At least
you
in
know what?
PS6, we'll get.
I love
Go ahead.
McKinn's. I love how much you get confused by these chill chats.
He does.
It gives me so much entertainment.
The exclamation mark me in your chat last week made me chuckle. At
I
least in the
know.
PS6, we'll get The Last of Us Part 1 Definitive Ultra Mega Final Edition. Exactly.
It needs it.
Digital.
But Tomahawk, The Last of Us is unplayable.
And I get what's the crack? Good to see you, buddy.
What's happening, folks? Was it not
But it's
better,
just mad.
Flemish, though, when Hook was muted? Was it not nicer? Was it not better?
Oh, shut your fizz. Cheeky shit. But yes, I am back here, folks. One thing I have to say as well, obviously, like there's been the whole switch in the Discords this week. Thank you very much. You know, it's been quite active and all that jazz. We do have plans for it. We are making further changes and rebranding as well. Ain't that right?
Yeah,
Some
we're just
sort.
going to upload naked pictures of ourselves.
Exactly.
Constant. Just of
Exactly.
our bums. And both of us taking pictures of each other's bums.
I put both streams on my two screens now. Good man yourself. He's watching
Oh,
both
thank
of
you.
us.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, McKins. Good man. Who's talking
Go-
balls? Crazy. I heard you're all sick.
Me and Hook are going digital only. That's right. No physical pictures. No more physical discords.
Fuck's sake, I may dump that poor out camera then. God's sake, just bought it too.
I get pictures. Won't be the won't be the most challenging wank I've done. Oh, the classic.
Coming around in a bit, to be fair, house is dying though. Yeah, Mrs. Hook was just telling me that Chrissy's house is down with the plague, unfortunately.
Ooh, that's not good.
They're all sick, which is shit.
Well, hopefully I'll feel a little better soon.
I know. Richard, you obviously love physical media as well, like, so it's just bullshit, hey? And I'm just, you know what? One thing I did see today though, and I actually don't know a lot about this, so chat yous can educate me, and maybe you might know as well. But apparently, you know the way Nintendo for a while now has been doing like their codes as well with games. Apparently,
Yeah.
they are resellable.
The codes? I have no idea.
It doesn't tie to your account.
Right, okay.
Like, that's fantastic if they could do that, which would allow you to like resell titles. Maybe chat will know. I don't have a Switch 2. I might get one
I
eventually because Ian keeps tempting me.
you mentioned Richards there as well. I'm going to tell you a rumor about him, something I hear about him.
What?
He may have 1 or 2 DVDs.
I think
Just
so.
one or 2.
I picked up Pitch Black on DVD today for €1,
Ooh,
which I was
nice
quite
one.
happy about.
Very good film.
Game cards are not linked to your account, which was clear from the start, but people wanted to be outraged. See, I like that. So you buy the box that has the stupid wee game,
Waffles!
whatever, but it's not stuck to your account. That's amazing.
Only in the
and all I hear
door.
is Hooke complaining.
We're talking about the news that came out about the PS5 or the PlayStation in 2028 going digital only and dumping
Yeah.
the physical side of their
Bullshit.
thing, which is a bit mental. Everybody as well. Waffles came back for his return stream
Yes.
on Monday night and fucking smashed it playing some Fallout. So
was
if you're
great
not
too.
following Waffles, definitely give that man a follow.
He was playing
Is
the
it-
best Fallout game as well, Fallout 4.
He has a better beard than me, you know.
He does. He does.
Wait, hold
Here,
on,
but
hold
you know
on.
what?
You were supposed to turn around and say, no, he doesn't.
Do it,
And
lady.
you abandoned me. Dear, what's happening?
You know what we can agree on though? Mrs. Waffles is funnier than him.
Oh, 100%. Annihilator, if he comes on, he'll agree too.
Yep.
But at the same time, Mrs. Hook's funnier than you.
Well, that's to be confirmed. She's AI. So
I've
it depends how much you
met
program
her, so it is confirmed. Alexa's
Yeah,
definitely
what
funnier than you.
Alexa's definitely funnier. Hate this house. No, you don't. He has
He's
better
bit-
everything than you, Leyoric. Oh,
I'm not going to deny that. The man has 28 Steam
Ooh.
decks.
He does, to be fair. Sure, did you see him on the Discord the other day? He was at his lovely daughter's gymnastics competition, and I was like, "What'd you do when the Steam Deck died?" He's all pulled out the Switch. To be honest, I don't know when was the last time I bought a physical game or movie. The only thing I really buy is books. Been using it only digital for years now. Mrs. Hook loves a Kindle. Like she'll read books digitally. Where I like she bought me a Kindle recently, which is class, and I've been reading comics on it. But I prefer a physical book.
I like
as
the
well. Maybe I'm
smell and
just
the
old.
feel. I like the smell and the feel of the paper. Nice.
Oh, so good. But maybe I'm just old.
And when you get to the
Yeah.
stage, your pages start to stick together and stuff. No, it's just me.
It doesn't happen to my books. I'll tell you that for free.
Does when I get through them.
That's your books with all the pictures. 11 hours in arena to watch a 2-minute routine. I do regret bringing my own entrance. 11 hours.
11
Jesus
hours.
Christ. 2 minutes? Wait, why were you there 11 hours if she only performed for 2 minutes?
Never
Does she not
lend in
just rock
Leyoric a
up like
book.
an hour before?
Hey, you know, don't be. Hey, come on.
Depends what the subject of the book is.
I would
That's
lend
it.
you a book. I would lend you a book.
Ah,
To be fair,
I was looking forward to this. Not to say.
as much as I'm getting grief, I can say that your Halo manuals are probably in the same state.
Most of mine are sealed. I'll tell you that for free.
Sealed with semen. Sure, what's happening? Welcome in.
At
What a time to come in,
Backlash?
Asher.
Backlash. At
Welcome on, Asher. It's good to see you,
Backlash.
But I couldn't turn the pages. It's like turning the whole book.
Every book you
Backlash.
lend me a scratch and stuff by the time you got back.
Backlash.
Definitely a scratch. Peel it off.
Backlash.
At
reading a scratch card.
Backlash.
Most
At Backlash.
of them are sealed. I'm just looking at my books there.
Backlash.
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 Do you hear that come through?
You know. No, I can't hear it come through, but I can just see it.
Hey man, I'm power level 27k.
Ooh.
Getting there. I'm
You
getting
got-
there. I'm getting there.
Tell me what you want.
Give Cleo a treat.
Oh, excuse me?
It's back. It's back.
No.
Yes.
What do you say?
Now,
They brought it back.
No.
I figured out what
Upward
was
momentum.
wrong.
No.
I figured out what was wrong. I couldn't
I'm
get it
not gonna
working
give
the
you a treat if
last
you call me that.
stream because
What do you say?
when I unplugged everything,
Right.
somehow I broke the old camera. So I had to buy a new camera for it.
No way.
She's just lying, sleeping like 15 quid. Just a sweet 1080p.
They'll
on it.
get. All right, I. Do you not
My
have
check-
an Elgato camera as well?
My check-in is broken.
I've been trying to check on them and I can't. I just
Is it not?
assumed people were using it.
No, it should automatically come on.
Fucking diabolical.
It's saying there's-
Fucking diabolical. No, give me a wee second. I'll switch this back on. Why?
Good man,
Would
McKenzie.
you? Thank you, McKenzie. I am all of the problems tonight.
To be fair, you did rebuild your PC the other day, so some issues are to be expected.
Check-in.
But folks,
Yeah.
in my stream as well, the check-in last stream, whenever you checked in, I was saying to use exclamation mark power after to check your power. You don't have to do that anymore. So when you check in now, it'll check it for you. If your power level is at a high enough level, it'll check it for you.
Why
So
then?
you can still check it at random
Okay.
times, but you don't have to. FYI.
Like, give it a
Tech
go now,
problems make
somebody.
the stream fun. Yeah. Rebuilt the PC and only one redeemed it. Not a bad outcome.
I know.
Just like,
Definitely not. No. It has been a while. Tech problems is all what streaming's all about.
oh, of
There we
course.
go. Well, much just up there. Right, dog needs treat. Dog needs.
Also, Hooke, I think it's time I got new PC parts and a new PC case. I have the case for you. I have a case for you, McKenzie. You don't need a case. It's just parts. Depends what parts you want to change to, actually. But no bother at all.
Everybody's
I
checking
have a
on now.
case
Thank
that's
you,
basically
folks.
brand new.
I was sitting there earlier on going, everybody's checking on the stream, but they're not checking on my stream.
I'm not popular. Hit this house.
Fucking hit Hook. Bastard.
Sound like my wife. Oh, Sarah, thank you for the check-in. Oh, you got KO Ken. Well done. You've leveled up. You've leveled up.
Is that your man from Street Fighter?
That's not that. KO Ken. I forgot you had that. I do indeed. It's up there in the box now, McKenzie. And it is immaculate because I didn't even use it for that long. So you're welcome to it.
Up there in the box. Just saying.
Oh, Chrissy's over 9,000. Oh,
Over
1,000.
9,000.
Chrissy, you're getting you got a wee message there to say you're getting close to leveling up. Also, Teddy Surgery had the suggestion last stream to add the Senzu Bean, so you could randomly have your power level multiplied. That is there. It's just a rare chance. So someone that checks in might get a Senzu Bean.
Audio's complete.
How much over 9,000 too?
I can't see any other audio apart from my mic and streamer bot at the moment. And Discord.
29k, Tom.
Is it the microphone's coming through double?
I'll see.
I'm number 2. Come on.
Ooh,
Look at me.
Tomahawk's up first. Straight up the first. Nice one.
Oh, it was only when Cleo's camera was on. I didn't even realize I had an audio source. It fucking does.
Ah, so
It
has
has
a
an
mic
audio
built into
source. Cleo, what? Are you playing it? Having an audio source? Walking, swanning in here. Swanning in. Making
That's in case she
noises.
starts like making noises so we can hear. You're so close to
she-
20k.
she
I know
don't-
Mackenzie's
um,
3 points off level up.
Unless a postman's at the door, she is not making noise.
Because I'm the fucking goat. You are. That's it.
Thank you, Waffles, for letting me know. I had no idea that was even on there.
Question of the day. Question of the day today is what's your comfort game? So what's your go-to game? Tomahawk's going to say Dead by Daylight. That man's obsessed with. Dead by Shitlight.
Stardew Valley.
Stardew Valley. Nice
Love
choice.
Stardew
Nice choice.
Valley. Love a bit of Stardew Valley. Cleo needs her own audio
Actually-
source, ask for more treats. And she would. I'd get extra power points for being a mod. You get less.
No.
You get less. You have to pay a fee to become a mod.
Can't skip the queue unless you pay me. 3 points though. I do feel bad. I'm tempted to give you the 3 points, but like it's also funny not to.
It means he comes back next week.
Exactly. Stardew is a great show game. Mine's is Cult of the Lamb. Cult of the Lamb's a fantastic game.
I remember Chris Akira
DVD
playing
is
that.
my
It
comfort.
was very good.
That was fantastic. That's the only time I've seen it actually.
That's why I ain't the
Mine
mod
would
for
be
you, Leyoric.
Overwatch Simulator. Oh, Power Wash Summoner or the Fallout games? Great choice. Mine would be Valheim or Halo 1.
Oh, Valheim's a good one.
They're my go-to.
Valheim's a good one.
Mm. Valheim's fantastic. I just space out and just build shit. Absolutely love it.
Will we get
Constant
into the
Man's
game?
fantastic though. I fuck it. I've been chinwagging for 25 minutes.
I mean, we did. I mean, you got grief about this earlier on.
And you do it all the time now.
You're a bad influence.
But let's get into the game. Fuck it. Let's do it.
Blamosh's
I think I need
favorite
to-
game.
Yes. I need to invite you, don't I? Right, let me turn
You
off
do.
that. So I sat down the other night and I was like, right, I'm gonna set up my
Mike, what is happening?
Welcome in, Mike.
Mike Does Audio got married. He
did.
is now officially Mr. Mike Does Audio. And just back from his honeymoon and everything. How did you get on?
Oh.
The videos and all everything from the wedding looked brilliant. Anyway, it's
Good to
up
see you,
on
Mike.
Mike as well. He is back tomorrow. Are you streaming a Final Fantasy 8 speedrun or is it something else you're streaming? I don't even know what you're streaming. I know you're back tomorrow. Check him out. I think it's a daytime stream as
Looking
well.
forward to it.
So if you're about during the day, excellent. We stream the lurking too.
Dirtbag. I'm very excited, Mike, I have to say, and welcome back, and congratulations again. You looked happy. Is the best thing I can say. I'm very happy. It was the best. Return to work was shite. Oh,
More Final Fantasy 8? Yes. The
Nice.
best. It's the best game.
so I hit continue. I think I just invite you, don't I?
Yeah, just don't invite me.
Steam, I think. Oh,
We're
who got
steaming.
Kaioken? Sammy's Kaioken. Nice one, Sammy. Welcome in, buddy. Good to see you.
Mike Does Audio when Mrs. Mike says he's allowed. That's also true. But we're all in that boat now. You're the same, Waffles. You got married there in April. You're in the same boat.
That's funny. That's funny. Right. Why can't I invite you? I
Because
don't
you hate
remember.
me. Because you hate me.
I don't know if I go back.
Using the game.
Legolas.
We're trying. I'm trying. He won't
We
invite me to the game. Legolas, he's doing it on purpose now so he can keep chatting.
Join another player's game.
I'm gonna start Mr. Worldwide, but I
Uh,
decided to turn the world upside down. Sammy, no matter where you start, you're a legend.
Right, so if I hit continue here, is it here I invite you?
I don't know. You're the one in
I don't
charge here.
remember.
You're the captain of this boat.
Hold on. Captain Hooke. Wait.
I'm just a
It's-
seaman.
It's
Look
not
what
giving me
Mike-
the
he's just-
option to invite you.
He wants to play all by himself. He doesn't even want to play by himself. He just wants to sit in chinwag.
I do love. There we go. I can invite you now. I do love a good chinwag. You've got me there.
Resident Evil
Uh,
6.
Invite the game.
Flamosh's
Right, invite this
favorite
sent.
game.
There we go.
There we sucking diesel now.
Ooh. Legolas is Super Saiyan. Legolas is the first person to get Super Saiyan. Well done.
You know what?
GG.
Because of her actual kung fu skills, I don't doubt it.
That's true. She has a black belt.
Yeah,
For real
yeah.
life.
To be fair, she would beat any of us up if we beat her, dude.
That walk on is worth 100 points. Never mind 3. McKenzie really wants these 3 points.
Maybe like the best 9 days.
Leon, Helena,
Oh.
are you okay?
Yeah,
Why is my controller
Legolas
over?
birdies and we're still alive.
It's just
We're
you.
cutting through the
Um,
cemetery.
Legolas done my real solid, though, because as you all know, I was away last night with Mrs. Hooke in Dublin, Season 5, and our wee son, Tedderino, stayed up with Legolas and slept in with the kid, or his cousin.
Oh, very good.
Had a great time. He had a great time.
Hello.
She done my real solid there.
My controls are hopeless. What are you?
Right? You hope the throw upside down or anything?
It's going on as if it's upside down. I'm not joking.
Happy Irishman, thank you for the check-in.
I don't.
Oh,
The buttons
shit,
are all
there's a
over this too. Ah shit. What control scheme is this game
I
going?
remember
for?
what.
Hold on, I need to.
Oh, nice.
the control scheme.
Maybe you're on inverted. Can I guess
What?
in there? Happy
Yeah.
Irishman's cow Ken. Whoa. So Legolas is the first to get Super Saiyan. GG, Legolas.
Graphics, game settings. Control.
Oh, Tomahawk, you've been dethroned. Shit.
I need you to take care of this.
I know I was chinwagging and a zombie attacked me. Jerk.
Change keyboard settings. I don't want keyboard settings. Restore defaults. Yes. Will that work? No.
Okay, there's one key thing.
I might have to do my keyboard. Shit. Right, okay.
Oh, Jesus, put it.
It is, it
Back
is.
up. Back up.
No. We're just... I need to lower my volume, so...
Is it loud? Don't die, Hook. I'll try not to. Which is the one people really hate? 5 or 6? I think it's 6.
6.
Like,
It's 6. But Flemish loves it.
I prefer this one so far. I'm not even. I like the ending of 5. I didn't like the start.
There's monsters and things. I prefer plug controller and plug it back in. I don't even know if that's the issue. The controller's working fine. It just decided for whatever reason that it was going to invert all the controls, but not even invert them upside down. Like up was left.
I'm dead.
Fuck. Right. Go back.
I'm dead.
Nope.
Yep.
Yep.
Somehow
Stab you.
he was able to grab me even though I was in the middle of an animation of picking him, which is some great bullshit. Pop about 6 bolts under. Oh, there's more of them. I think they just keep spawning here. What the hell?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have any health. Yeah, I don't have any. Oh, there's a herb. Perfect timing. Right, so I have to put the herb in my inventory or something, don't I?
Aye.
remember
It's that sort of weird inventory system, isn't it? There's some monsters and violence breaking out everywhere, and Leyoric's over there checking his emails. It's like, I'm waiting to hear back about this job.
Right, store in case.
Oh, fell. Oh shit, fell in the hole.
There we go. Now I can heal. Right, I'll be with you in a second. Whew. Did you get your controller sorted?
Mouse keyboard.
Oh,
I'm just going to learn this
First
as
of
I
all,
go.
what is happening, sir? Just dropping in
First of
before
all,
hope all
what
is well.
is this?
Hope all is well. I had a fantastic wee weekend, I have to say. Or start of the week, I have to say. I was working
Shite
Monday, but then I
song.
was off yesterday and today, which is even better.
Was
so
the
we
shit
did this
song?
figure and I
Just all over the clips.
Right, why is Sprint now left stuck again?
Sees yours doing the same thing.
What the hell? Because I was applauding this for not being left stuck to Sprint previously.
Even Lurk Hope as well. It is hump day. It is the... It's officially the weekend now, in my head.
Well, I have to work Friday this week, unfortunately, because I usually don't work Fridays. So I'm not looking forward to that. Because I swap my days, you see. How's that working? At least your aim might be decent now, your keyboard and mouse.
I doubt it.
What did you roll about?
Fred Durst. No!
Parkour.
Parkour. I'm off this weekend.
Nice,
Can't wait. Ooh, nice one.
Nice. Any plans, weekends? We have a christening on Saturday. But apart from that, I don't have any plans.
Anything to be said for another mass? Gene Hackman. He was in the Beside adventure. He played a priest, and he didn't even say a mass. I shot him in the knee, and his head exploded.
I shot him in the head at the same time.
Oh, did you?
Look at that Roman Reigns Superman punch. What the heck? These are some nimble zombies.
We're going streaking!
Thank you for the streak, Sammy.
And into the gymnasium! Come on,
Sammy, I hope you're
everybody!
well, dude. It is damn good to see you. Thank you for the check-in and the streaks and stuff. Where's our bomb?
That was me.
Okay.
I didn't mean to, like.
Need your help here to open this door.
I'm trying to get used to the controls.
Had a table at my wedding called Ireland's largest laundry section. I feel like you'd appreciate it.
Very good. Oh, shit.
Love it. Love it. Oh, I'm a big fan of that. can't remember if this guy's alive or not.
Say it's Ireland's biggest lingerie section.
I understand. I actually quoted that at the weekend, Mike. They missed a sip, but I can't remember why now. It wasn't a lingerie section, but it was some, she says it's something about some fucking place in Ireland, but huge. And I was all, it's Ireland's. I can't remember what the place was now. To be fair,
With all
I
my
can
most
afford it.
messy friends on it. Oh, can't tell us who was it? Who was it? Who was on it? Who was on it?
That we'd have been at that table.
Was it James and Josh?
Right, what are we doing here then? I don't remember.
Well, there's an indicator out here that we have to go to.
Oh yeah, he does a chin wagon. No, no, you figure it out, I'll drink tea.
Oh, we have to go follow the dog, which is a zombie. Oh, he's the key.
Oh, it has a key.
There are worse things than chasing a dog through a cemetery.
Yeah,
Oh shit.
it could be chasing us.
No, it has the key. I would rather chase this. What are you talking about, Leon?
Oh, okay. A is also sprint for me. Right, fine. I know you're in keyboard, so... Keyboard and mouse probably would have been easier for this game. All been...
Oh, fell down the hill. I'm just running straight to the stock, man. I'm just avoiding everybody.
Ah, fair enough.
Gonna get that tag. Oh, player has joined as a creature. Did you not make it offline?
Check. I forgot to turn offline. Or online off.
Dog killer.
Got it.
Now let's get to that cathedral.
Sorry, we have to run back up now. Stop. Oh. Just begin. Not even bother fighting.
It is funny that all these dogs and zombies are dropping ammo. I do like that. I do like it about it.
Oh,
Leon doesn't want to get his hair wet. Oh, that's true.
Yeah, that's true. The man's got a serious hairdo on him. I go right, wrong way. I don't know.
Oh shit, I think I've got myself lost. No, I'm not.
I definitely am.
I keep getting bitten by dogs. Oh, I'm about to die. Oh, right, okay.
Oh shit. Are you dead?
No, I'm just like low in health. I think I've gone the wrong way.
No, you're being chased. I think we have to run back up where we were.
Yeah.
How much? This being your favorite game of all time? Like the camera angle's a bit janky at times. I'm surprised that doesn't annoy you.
See, Flamash isn't the man who complains. He just kind of goes with the flow. He'd be the most happy of all the people I know.
Happy
Which
and
is-
happy.
Which is referenced by his love of Hawaiian shirts.
we're in.
Well, that's true. That is true. And he likes pineapple.
He likes punk. Oh, that's true.
He does.
And
Big stuff.
oh, I'm dead. I'm dead. And he comes in the chats and says aloha. So you know what, man? You're gonna. I'm dead.
Dead.
I'm dead, Ted.
The dogs are eating.
I know. Oh, was
Oh, that
that
was the
player?
person that got you? Dick.
Yeah.
That's why. Right, okay.
I'm gonna see if I can get
It's
the
me,
controller working.
bitches. Is it you, McKins? Oh, no, it's not you. Right, okay. Oh, for fuck's sake, we have to do it all out again.
I don't know.
Right.
Go and let me see if I can figure this.
You figure it out. I take your time. It's all good. It's all good. Never play on keyboard and mouse. Unless it's an FPS, I don't, you know.
Oh, they've joined
Oh,
again as a creature.
Again. Right, to be back out and turn off
Ah.
the online. Aye, let's cut out.
I can't even go up to the menu in this.
It's, you have to press Y. I think. Oh, the zombie.
No, it's not.
Fuck
It's
off,
not
man.
way in this one. Fuck. See if that's you, dickhead. I got you.
No, the dog comes out of that room. Right, if I hit escape. There we go. Let's see. End game session. Yes. That should kick you.
Player has ended game session.
Did it kick you out?
No. Leon's just
No.
there.
Just you end your session as well then. I'll set it off. That happened last time too.
Did?
People will only play this online. Now that is some serious match. I know. What the? We had it last time too, and they just harass you. The little shits.
But why are they playing online?
Just for shits and giggles, so they can harass you and just make it difficult.
Controller bindings, right? Okay. The device one.
Right.
Move forward.
There we go.
Move.
Network selection offline.
Oh my god! Look at the shape of these.
Partner join. Oh, hold on. There's that. Partner join. Do not allow anyone to join your game. Don't allow.
Aim camera up. Aim camera down. Aim camera up. Aim camera down.
For God's sake. So I chose offline. That just took me into the game by myself. No. End session. You figure this out.
Display route guide. Health tablets. That.
Maybe it's a setting.
So it's just buttons. I'm going to get used to them as I go on the next night and improve, because I don't. Right, okay. Want to invite me on now? I'll give it a go. Give it a whack.
Time for some Witcher 3. Oh, Mackenzie's that what you're playing, dude? I love The Witcher. James Lee has been playing The Witcher 1 on PC,
James
which has been quite a good watch.
Lee, dee-ba-dee-ba-da-choo.
I love James. He's a good dude. I knew
he's-
you were going to do that. Yeah, there we go. I can set our session to private. That's what I need to do.
Happy days.
Right. Okay.
Difficult enough dealing with our own incompetence and having other people come and try murder
I
us.
know. We've had people murdering you. Oh, waiting for another player.
Ooh. Ooh.
Can I invite you? See, I'm not getting the option to invite you now in Steam.
Wonder if I can just join.
Wonder if you can.
No. No. Oh.
No?
Watch game. Invite the watch. And watch you.
I
Did
don't
you
know
go
if we can do this then.
Did you go private, eh?
Yeah, I went private and then I had no option to invite you anymore.
Well, if I go to join and the thing, maybe it'll bring you up.
Right, I have to start again first. For that. Because it is well known, I don't want people griefing us when we were trying to do stuff. No,
I know,
just put me
I know.
straight into the game. So that.
Can you invite me from the game, no?
No, so the option wasn't there. Like, well, there's an option on screen to invite from game, but it doesn't work. When you press anything, it just doesn't respond. You have to invite through Steam, which is weird. Right, so campaign.
We're just got to deal with griefers then.
I think we're just going to have to do it, yeah. Right, so chapter difficulty, yep, fine. So it gives me network selection, online or offline. If I choose offline, it just puts me straight into the game by myself with AI, obviously.
Yeah.
Partner join. You have don't allow, so, which was on anyway. Don't allow anyone to join your game. Private. Allow only invited players to join your game, which is what I was trying to do.
Okay.
It wouldn't work. So, let's see, right. So I have it set as private. So if I hit start game, I should get the... Right, go on, you try and find me first. Go you to join game.
Right, and am I looking for...
Since we're friends on Steam, it should just come up.
Well, if I
Just
go to
find you.
Leon chapter 2, it should hopefully find you. Did not find session to join. Refresh. Refresh.
No, that's
Refresh.
probably the save, isn't it? So if I can hit invite friends here, but it doesn't actually work. So if I try now on Steam, I don't have.
Hi, Irish, what's happening?
Unfortunately. So we just have to put up with griefers if we want to actually play this. 'Cause the
Yeah,
private
yeah.
function doesn't work.
They can only be an animal, like we'll just murder them.
Yeah. Right, so I think that was on don't allow originally. So if I create session. No, it's put me straight into the game. Fuck. Hold on. So it doesn't work. That functionality.
Thank you. May, welcome on. What is happening?
May, what's happening? Hello?
May, we had a word funny. We had a word funny and something about you the other night.
Umaru, you sure you want to do that right now?
Wait a while, funny answer, but you going out. So you messaged me saying that you were going to rebrand your Twitch, but not they look, and the promise not they look until you were done. And I was all, aye, no bother, I promise, no worries. About 20 minutes later, Hooke messaged me going, hey, do you know who this person is? I was like, no clue,
I
don't
didn't
recognize the name. And it wasn't until I looked at the picture, I was all, shit, that's me.
I had never seen your picture, and I
You
was
you
like,
were about, you were
"Who's
about to
that?"
get blocked. You're about to get blocked and everything. Hooke was like, oh, who's this? I
True.
don't recognize this name. And I was like, I
True.
don't recognize him either.
My,
Oh.
my immediate thought was, it's probably spam. Turns out it wasn't. It was May, and May's lovely.
I know, if you're
So
not
folks, if you
following
don't
me,
know May, check her out.
definitely
Sorry, go ahead.
follow. No, you go ahead.
Send you an invite there.
Yeah, I'm joining now, babes. Thank you for the shout out. Not a
Yeah,
problem.
but just got to put up with griefers, unfortunately. May, thank you for the check-in. Much appreciated. Ooh, you got the message saying you're getting close. That means you're close to leveling up. Close.
I got
Next
your
stream, we'll
invite,
probably do
and
it.
it brought me into the game, but it didn't actually do anything.
Ruh-roh.
Go and send it again.
Right, okay. Invite again. There we go. That's a great emote.
There we go. Looks like it. Right, searching for a game to join.
There
The
we
most
go.
difficult boss is the networking in this game.
Yep. And obviously the private networking just doesn't work. Good job.
And the fact
Capcom.
that just decided to
Good
change
job.
all
Elena,
controls. There we
you
go,
okay?
controls working.
Yeah.
Hey, nice.
For whatever reason, we're still alive.
This is wrong.
Look at the
We're
two of them
heading
just
for the
sitting with their
cemetery
headsets.
to reach the cathedral.
Right, just run. Back it. No point fighting all these fuckers. You don't. Oh, they fell in a hole. I did fall.
And then you did. You did. Right
Yep.
now.
There's a zombie in here, of course there is.
Are you alright?
I'll have to take a good start. Just annoyed. Just lost health for no reason. That's a powerful lightning flash. It actually.
It was,
I did not fall in that hole.
it was shopping.
Beat it, you little shit.
I can hear you wanking your controller.
Wait, you can hear that?
I know.
Ghetto noise suppression isn't doing its job then.
I had to tweak all my settings earlier on because it was suppressing my microphone too much.
Right, okay. Yeah, that mustn't be working anymore because you shouldn't be able to hear that controller going calmly.
Yeah.
Would we have the key again?
Right, I'm in the wee house.
Yeah. I'm not going to try the gate here just to.
Damn it, it's locked.
Yeah, just one of the keys. Okay.
Oh, it's messed up
We'll
my
figure something
shooting
out.
controls. Shit.
Maybe there's a key.
Oh, man. Hey, how's life? How's things? By the way. I hate that they do this Roman Reigns level Superman punch. You die, please.
Oh, shit, I'm out of there. That was good. Oh, no, many at me. Many at me.
Don't you die again. Thank you, guys.
It's not my fault. It's the shitty
That
controls.
is your fault.
It's not even telling me what my buttons are anymore. It's just coming up with numbers.
Oh, no
Like-
way.
3.
Doing well.
What the fuck is 3?
How was
Pick up ammo.
how was
What
your
is
trip?
what is 3?
Fantastic. I'm in Derry, so we drove down to Dublin, which is about a 3-hour drive. Drove around for a bit. We went to a concert, and it was Maroon 5. And then drove back up today after staying over, which was great. We walked, it was in Malahide in Dublin. Well, it's Stick, County Dublin.
Okay,
And we
mouse
walked
and
after the
keyboard it
concert
was.
for like 45 minutes. You back to mouse and keyboard again? Vic.
I have to. It's
was lovely.
completely messed up my controller. This is the dog with the key, isn't it? We have to get after him.
Let's get him.
But I'm going to go in here and heal first.
Oh. Sorry. Haven't been a concert in ages. Well, me and Mrs. Hooke went, and
Things than
McKinns
chasing a
went
dog through a cemetery.
Yeah.
February, I
It could
think
be
it was,
chasing
to
us.
Ultra Bridge, which was also in Dublin. That was fantastic.
But
So the Moon 5 was in Malahide in Dublin. and then we're back in Dublin 2 weeks again for Breaking Benjamin, which I'm really looking forward to.
What I do the heal now?
So you put it on your wee box.
Hey. Yeah, but what's the heal button?
RB. Oh, you're on keyboard and mouse.
Finding Leyoric.
Actually, there's
There's
himself.
himself.
Chat, if not.
Ian,
shall we
what
say
is
the
happening, brother?
rarest Gym badge in Kanto.
Welcome in. Welcome in. It is good to see you. my
You'll
friend.
usually find
Good
him
to see
somewhere
you.
making
Ian,
bad
I have
jokes,
a
you
bone
know.
to pick with you. Never mind the
Yeah,
fact that
but
you're
like
handsome
you're one of those like
and have a great
shiny ones
accent.
that everyone has because they were
And I
like
was
in a special
closer
drop
to where
event
you
or
live
something like
yesterday.
that, you know.
And I thought, you know what, I might call around the age for a cup of tea, but I didn't. You're making me want a Switch 2.
How dare he?
I know. Ooh, Legolas is top, Tomahawk is second, Leyoric is third, Sean is fourth, and Happy Irishman's 12th. Tomahawk
let's
was first, hey, short-lived. Short-lived
get this
streak.
dog.
It's like a 24/7 title. Let's go for it. Right, just you run past things and don't die this time. Get good. Wait up.
What? But you can't do this to me.
You know how much I sacrifice?
Was nowhere near that hole. I'm way the wrong fucking way. Thank you very much for checking in. Signing non-ledger.
Can't kick dogs, I don't think. Nope. I'm sure the big dogs, this is not good.
Sure, thank you very much for checking in. Sorry folks, I'm not seeing what levels you're. I'm struggling with the game a wee bit.
You're a bit with the keyboard and mouse. Nightmare. Yeah. Fuck off, dog. Where's the dog? Where's it? I got it. Yeah, he's dead.
Did we get the key? Yeah. No, we didn't. Key. Let's go. Run. Run.
Yep.
Now let's get to that cathedral.
It's almost like the worst design game ever made. It wouldn't be so bad if I had kept the control scheme from last time. I don't know why it
Well,
thought.
what do you
oh,
love about it? Because like,
why-
Flemish was
why-
next to me yesterday for about an hour talking about
Oh, well,
his
well.
love for Resident Evil 6.
I would say so. I would say so.
Yeah.
Like, if there's songs and emotes about it, it must be true.
Yeah.
Is that not the law?
What's it all? To be fair, it's class. It's a lovely wee console. I am tempted, I have to say. Now, I was tempted to hold off for... Obviously, we're getting the new version in Ireland in February. The one that you can remove the battery. So I'm like, do I wait for that?
Oh, is this in the Switch too?
Aye. Because the Switch 2 at the minute you can get as cheap as $350. Compared
there's
to
no-
like a PS5 and Series X.
There's no game on it that I really, really want yet.
There's a couple of the Mario games that I'm like, I wouldn't mind playing.
Yeah.
And then Tears of the Kingdom, like Ian has me itching to play that game because I spent about...
Okay, we're in.
And then I gave up on it because I just finished... I can't remember what the RPG was I was playing it. So. But I need to go back to it. Because I've been
Oh, we're split
watching
up.
Ian's streams.
Leon, are you all right?
For sure. I'm loving it.
Well, nothing broken anyway. Good thing, too. Kinda doubt you'd be doubling back for me.
You never know. Meet me at the cathedral.
Meet you at the cathedral. No problem.
Let me kick the dog.
Really? Sick. Trying to reach out, but the game is being too rude. Oh, is this like a maze?
It's amazing.
Come on, Elena.
It's amazing.
Keep it together.
Yeah, I get it. I was ignoring you.
No, Hook. It was amazing. 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 See, May appreciates me.
No, don't encourage him.
Yes, always encourage me. This boy's running away from me.
There we go.
He's actually running away
Would
from me.
like RE5 and 6. I mean, I've seen the gameplay, but I don't think I'll enjoy playing it. I'll be honest. The start of RE5, I hate. The ending of RE5, I really liked actually.
Yeah. Got really good towards the end. There's a
And this
fella
so
I've...
far, I have to say.
Legos, thank you for checking in. Oh, that's a
They're
fun
the
noise.
weakest Resident Evil games that I've played so far. I'll admit that. These are like a shitter version of Resident Evil 4. Right? Where am I? This way? Yes. Oh, he looks different. Get back here.
Well, you can't say that. Switch 2, Spider-Man 3
Oh, it's
houses.
on
What more
Screamer,
could you
guys.
want? Well, so does Switch 1. I found a gate.
I killed him.
Apparently I can't open it without you.
Of course. Makes sense. I don't know.
Because Paulina can't
Trying to
open
reach
gates.
out to this game is being too fucking disruptive. Even mega fans can't defend. Not sure if I asked you guys, but have you played the OGs like on stream? Yeah, so me and Leyoric have both played as the same amount, haven't we?
Well, not the
Up to the
OGs. I played the remix.
Oh yes, sorry, it's not the OGs, you're right, you're right. I played 0,
Good, yeah.
which had like a, I think it was 2013, it had like a HD port. I played that, I loved 0, I have to say. Now the only thing about 0 is that the inventory management is shit,
Yeah.
but the game itself is great. Resident Evil 1 also had like a HD port at one stage. It's not a remake, it's just like a HD port.
Do I need to walk all
played
the way
that, but
over
then-
here to get you?
Maybe. I'm over here. But then, apart from that, I played remake, so 2, 3, 4 remake. Loved them, I have to say. Although I do prefer the older style of Resident Evil games versus 4, 5, and 6, you know.
There you are. What are you doing up here?
I don't know. I'm trying to find a way out.
That's this way.
I don't know. I do lead the way there, because I'll just end up getting lost here.
Around here.
That's the way I came.
Follow me. Oh no, wait a minute. Yes, lad.
This path?
Yeah.
There's the item over here.
And then up here.
Yep. Ah, okay.
Love RE1 remake, but for herself, they left it and you can't get a canon ending. What do you mean?
No
Thanks.
way.
You coming into
What do
this
you mean?
cathedral with me or what?
But I loved it as well, and I have to say. 1 and 0 were like I played the two of them back to back, of course. First playthroughs as well. Which was only like 2023, I
Hurry.
want to say I played through all the Resi games. Loved it.
I
So
cracked
good.
up with RE1 remake because Flamash told me not to get the mod discs, and apparently I needed them to save Chris.
Oh. It's not a flash.
Fuck the MO discs.
My favourite RE game is CDX, Code Veronica. Is that what that is? It was the first one I played and fell in love with Claire and Alexia Ashford. I'm somewhat excited for RE Veronica.
I'm
That
looking
trailer was
forward to the
amazing,
remake.
wasn't it?
The trailer looked very good.
Hello?
That trailer
So
was
there you
I know
are.
someone's in there.
There's currently 4 survivors in the mansion, not including Wesker.
Those things will kill us!
But you can finish
Look,
it with a
it's
Christian
just
joke.
us.
You'll never escape with 3, right? Okay.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
okay. You'll get rid of them first.
What am I doing?
Eliminate all the enemies. Enemy evil. People are dying to get in here.
What the fuck? I got electrocuted? I can help me lightning.
Church bells?
I'm
Are you
there, here,
kidding
brother.
me?
Get ready. Here comes company.
Here comes company, baby. Let's go.
Thank you. That was an issue. I was standing too still. Loading. Right, we need to keep an eye out for like the screamer guys.
I'll give you guys a hand.
Sniper dude.
Wait these things. That was someone in there with a little
Jesus.
backbone.
Oh, one of them. Probably Ads incoming, folks. Screamer guy. Jesus Christ, he's around. Oh, Jesus. Pretty good.
You alright?
Yep. No, I'm dead. Yeah. Leon! Right, that's difficult. Oh, somebody
Both
on?
the Fire Emblem games. Fire Emblem are phenomenal. I never played Engage. Outbreak was good as well. I haven't played that in years. I'm trying to get Leyoric to play. You haven't tried to get me to play Outbreak. You said it once, I slagged it off, and you got really annoyed at me. Realize it's PTSD. I had PTSD because it was an online Resident Evil game. Came out in PS2. Nobody played with.
Hurry.
Right, hold on, let's reload and stuff.
I am going to fix my controls again. Right, what is next weapon? Next item? Shift? Ah, right, okay. That's why. With it work. So, what's
that's
weapons? And then shift is items. Right, okay. Because I was looking for grenades and I was like, there is no grenades.
I do have some actually, I must use them. Let me get a drink.
Very buggy in those days. I think everything deserves a facelift. Yes, I agree.
100%. I did see there was rumours for ages there they were remaking 5 and 6, but I think Capcom themselves squashed that recently. It says they're not.
Yeah.
Hello?
Usually folks say Paul Turner by the way, but co-op streams we can do.
Crazy.
I think it's because 5 and 6 are perfect the way they are and they don't need to change a thing.
Well, 6 definitely. Yeah, I'm not pushing our heads if we says it needed a remake.
Okay. We'll get rid of it first.
Wasted.
Now, if only they all come over at the one point, like instead of all around us.
Church bells? Are you kidding me?
Get ready. Here comes company.
Nice.
Lads, start throwing something fierce as soon as the ad clicks on. They're like, fuck you ads.
Sorry. We usually do pause for ads. I usually don't like ad pause for ads, but these games do feel like it very well.
I'll give you guys a hand. Let's waste these things. That was someone in there with a
Gee, on all
does.
the screen. Never mind. I'll get it on it. Back.
Like a wee liquor fucker.
They're like Vecna. They look like Vecna.
Oh, drop kick.
That was nice.
Tackle you.
Oh no, my door.
Putting a lot on the line trusting you. I hope this info of yours is worth it.
It is. Stake my life on it.
open the door then, would you? Oh, we're supposed to open the door.
Of course we are. Of course we are. For God's sake, sweating buckets here. I think 5 remake is valid, but 6 needs a full rewrite. I don't like they do it 4 campaigns. That's what I do.
Well done, when there's sniper rifle that. You've done it again. The guy's a hero. The hero. Not all heroes wear capes. Yeah, I think we played the demo and that was it. Take me to church.
Sorry, guys. We're not rescue workers.
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
There's a secret door by the altar that leads underground.
As you know.
But we need to find a way to open it.
How did I know that?
You
I know.
want to tell me what's down there?
It's better if I show you.
I may drink first.
Okay. Right, let's take a breather here. Gameplay and battle is fun. The story, honestly, not is hot fucking garbage. Characters infuriatingly annoying and 2-dimensional.
I think
That's
I'm
fair.
getting a bit of grief there.
Well done, Windows sniper rifle guy. You've done it again. He smashed the window. Now he's just left it like open for people to come in. Whoa.
See, the problem is, every time he gets feedback, they give off him about what he did with the window, and they're all, hey, you're smashing it. And he's like, oh, I'm doing well. No, you're smashing it. You keep smashing the fucking window, pack it up.
Heavenly Father, I beg of you,
Egypt.
please, watch over my Nancy. She's with
Have you
her
fought a
boyfriend.
shark at any point? We have
I
not.
just don't trust he'll take
A shark?
care of her.
No.
Is it an
We
adult
haven't been
one
near
or a
water?
There's a baby shark. Do.
No.
Baby.
We haven't been near water though, have we?
What are you
Yeah,
on
don't
about?
I? Shush, for fuck's sake. Right. Let's smash up all the valuables.
Oh, I'm just in a wee dark room by myself. That's all.
There's another one on the other side there too.
Yeah. Well, there's a shark at the perfect example where this game needs a full scrapping from the series. RE1 had sharks as well, though.
There's a shark? What the fuck? Well, there was like 5, wasn't it 5? It had all those random sea monsters and the big crocodiles and stuff. Right?
Legolas, I can
You
make
made
that
it.
worse. My wee boy was so into superheroes when he was younger, I had to change that song to Tony Stark, do 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 do, Tony Stark, do 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 do, Tony Stark, do 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 do, Iron Man.
Here, I'll give you a boost up here.
There are stairs under this statue. It was open
You
the
can see
last
what's
time I
upstairs.
was here.
They did, but we're
What do
literally
we
talking
do?
Jaws versus Jaws 3D.
Oh, why am I going?
Let's take a look around.
I don't know, you can look around. May as well. See what's up there?
There's a looks to be a puzzle of some sort.
Ooh.
Well, there's an indicator to go over it, and that does nothing when you walk up it.
And there's also one on the other side. Oh, I see a wee thing up there.
That's what she said.
There we go. Nice. Where's the sharks with the frickin' laser beams on their heads? Frickin' laser
Getting
beams.
an Austin Powers 4 as well, man. I'm excited.
Are we?
Oh, aye, that's been confirmed.
Oh, I didn't see that. Nice one. I must rewatch them. I haven't watched them in a long time.
Well, what is my button for the menu now? I need to
Oh,
see
you're
if
still
I can-
keyboard and mouse, aren't you?
Oh, it's awful. I can't combine that.
Oh no,
now.
you are you keyboard and mouse now, or are you
Yeah.
controller but the keybinds don't work?
No, keyboard and mouse. So we figured out what we're supposed to do with this thing now.
Nope.
I'm
Oh,
judging
well
by the
done.
fact that it's a sizable arena, and we're going to have a zombie fight in here, aren't we?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Wait, you kicked the ladder so I can come up now.
Yeah, but what do we do?
That's good. Oh, no idea. Probably have to press something at the same time or
My
something.
son, Marco. He's
What
in
do you
the
mean,
PSAA. You watch. He'll be here with the whole army any minute now.
There we go. Up we go.
Unless
But I was
you have to do stuff
holding,
with them.
picking up Pitch Black today for a Euro. I was so happy about that. So I'll be watching that shortly. I
We're
love that
sucking
film.
Vin Diesel
Alex
now.
Riddick and Pitch You're doing what? Vin Diesel?
Family.
Uh,
Family.
This isn't just part of the decor.
You're right. There's more here than meets the eye.
Transformers.
Wow. Combine. Sure. Store cases. Store case. Store case. There we go. Alright, so maybe we have to press something at the same time each. Oh, I got it. I
Nothing's
picked up a loot
happening.
item too. Let me see.
What am I seeing here?
I put a lady there.
2 motherly saints will reveal the path.
Do you put one on your side, or do they do it the
No,
one
I
time?
did pick up a thing, but I think you've put down the one that I picked up,
Alright, well,
which is okay. Look. There's something down there. That's
I'll put
highlighted
it.
up here
I'll
for
put it.
some
Oh,
reason.
there's another statue.
Yeah,
Can you pick it up?
I can pick it up now. You can too, evidently.
It looks just like the other statue.
You have it, don't you?
Question is, what are they for?
Well, I think we both do, don't we?
I think because I just shared inventory. Yeah. So if you go and put it on there, it's easier.
Yeah. My babies are made.
But back to the Switch 2 because I'm still thinking about it there. Because it's only $3.50 at the moment. I'm tempted before they.
Do you want to do the other one?
What do you need me to do? Oh,
The one on the other side.
up there. Right, okay. I'm tempted before they hike the price up because I feel like Nintendo's going to come out now and be like, about that. It's not
Yeah.
a deal or something. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I get on
Nintendo wouldn't overly price something, would they?
well, historically,
I just want
yeah.
to go home.
Go on, Hooke, treat yourself. That's what I like to hear again.
They're all you like
That's what I
them. You like them Zelda games, don't you? Yeah, well, they're never going down the price ever.
My Switch 2 will now be called Ian. Oh, there we go. Right.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Nintendo does what Nintendo
Had
wants.
enough of
Like,
these games.
Nintendo does
Let's
what...
go.
I read that wrong.
The Nintendo don't
Yeah.
care, do they?
Nah. But that's the point I was making earlier on about Sony. They have no
Leon,
competition
take the
at the
other
moment on Xbox because Xbox is killed themselves essentially in the market.
Oh,
Nintendo
shit.
do their own thing.
Why is this a thing? Why would this be a thing? Oh shit!
Laser.
It's a fucking.
Is that Mary trying to shoot you with a laser?
Yes.
The fuck?
But she's way back on now. No, you've won your side.
What?
Why is this a thing? Why does a church need to build this?
Religion. So violent.
Selena, there's a switch on
There we
these
go.
statues that shuts them off.
No, Leon, you're joking. Oh, look
Leon.
at the amount. Look at the amount of room for statues in here. Burton, what's happening?
Burton, welcome in, you legend.
This makes no sense.
Nope.
Why would you
Come on.
build this room?
This is gonna get a little bit dicey.
We don't have
Build
time
it,
for this crap.
they'll come. You're right, Helena. We don't have time for this crap. That guy's fucking laser beam Mary again.
Yeah, I think that they like it's pretty much whack-a-mole now, isn't it?
Nah. Yep.
You think this is gonna stop me? Just keep moving!
Think this is going to stop me?
Wouldn't want to miss out on all the fun.
I know Resident Evil is known for their silly puzzles, like, but this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my
It is.
fucking life.
Lasers.
Why? Why is this a thing?
Maybe it's by Flemish accent because the puzzle's simple.
Why is it a thing? It shouldn't exist. It's statues of Mary with crossbows and laser beams being rolled out to shoot at us. Why is this a door? Why does someone need this to get into their wee room? I'm going to bed. I'm going to have to fight all these Mary statues, but I'm fucking tired.
Oh, that's got shot on. Mary, can't. Mary, this isn't very fucking Christian of you. Duck and weave, duck and weave. If I can dodge a spanner, I can dodge a crossbow that's on fire. Are we done?
Yes. I think so.
Okay, let's go.
For now, yeah.
I can see another laser. Oh, there's a Phil sitting in here with a gun. What's the story? What's the story here? I can't pick up his gun.
Reflect something.
I can trip over him, but that's about it.
Ooh. Did my laser do that? It did. You see this dish? No? My laser's pointing at it and did this.
That's pretty cool.
If I go in front of this laser, will it hurt me? No. Interesting. I need it at that side.
No, I'm just thinking some help.
Now you do that one, right? With your laser, and I'll do this one. Ah, there we go. Right. That makes no sense.
Nope.
Right. Q zombies. I hear they set up the security system to stop the parents playing the kids. It's like Portal over again. I was fantastic. Portal.
Were you?
Where?
I have like 1 health.
Right, is there a dish at your end that you can point a laser at?
No. Oh no, there is. It's on there.
Aye. Do it, and I'll do this one.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it. Supposed to do something?
Muy bueno.
Open the door for me.
Did it? Right, one of mine's open. Oh, mine's is open. It's done.
Oh, playtime is
Oh,
over.
Clyde Boss, thank you
How
very much for the
fortunate for
raid.
you.
Hold on a wee second, Hooke.
No worries, dude.
Welcome,
Take
man.
your
How
time.
was the
Take
stream,
your
buddy? How was the stream? I was lurking you as well. We went live around the same time, so I couldn't even watch. How did you get
I
on
know,
with all it?
unfortunately.
What is the story? Now, anyone who raids into me goes to my Hall of Fame. Give me a wee second. And you'll see wee tiny Hooke as well. What do you see? What do you see him? Look at him. He's right there.
I'm down the bottom, aren't I?
Oh, look at him. Look at the wee tiny Hooke. Oh, there he is. Cloud Boss, you are there in my Hall of Fame. Thank you so much for the raid. I hope you had a good night. How was the stream?
Jeez.
It was good, but I'm sick. That's right. You were a bit unwell last night as well, weren't you, buddy? We'll go back to my main screen. Wee tiny Hooke waving at me.
I see no difference. Shut up, Flemish. 5'1".
Aye, Flemish can't slag anybody off about height. Lies on government forums about his height. Wild man. Wild
He
man.
does. His wife has to keep him right.
Right, we have to shoot lasers down here, I think.
Lasers.
Lasers.
That's where we were, though.
Is it?
We're just above where we were.
Up above.
Up
That's what they are.
above. There we go.
I don't like us room.
Zombie in here?
It's way on up, the lasers.
Seriously, put about 6 bullets on that man, and he still gets me.
You done playing around out there.
Oh. There we go.
We meet up again. We meet again!
How do?
Sexy, what's happening? Nice to see you guys playing this, I know.
Good.
I'm
Welcome
his
in.
social filter.
Welcome in.
You do work hard at it.
Accidentally lied. Sure. His social filter. Not just his social filter. I'd imagine he filtered most things for that man.
You're his social kidney.
Kidney, caretaker. You know,
Oh, got an assault rifle.
the good fit.
Is there health?
I don't know if I can give you help here. Stand still. Hurry. Come here. If I use this...
Yes, it worked.
That hit you?
Nice one.
There we
Thank you, man.
Nice. No worries. What's it here?
There's a key in there that we have to get, so we probably have to split up again.
Right, so we have to
Have
shoot
you
them.
Resident Evil 6 times yet? This is our 6th Resident Evil.
Yes. Very efficient, so we're... It's not
I
like
think we
the
have to-
sniper?
Yeah. I think we have to shoot the bells.
Yeah, we do.
Did you shoot one?
I did.
And what did it do?
I had a lot of stinging fire underneath it. I don't see a bell on the other one though.
There's one over here.
We obviously have to get that statue Mary open. Toll the 5 bells loud and clear, and thus the true path shall appear. It says 5 bells, I don't see 2.
No, well, I've had a third one.
There we go.
Where you gonna go? Where'd everybody go? Bingo! I know. Are you guys gonna be playing RE7? I am, yes.
Leyoric will be. Yeah, after this, yeah. So on Sunday I'll be playing Halo 1 remake, or Halo 1 original, before the remake. After Halo, I'll either go back and do the other DLC for Dark Souls 2, or I'll play God of War 1 on the PS3 on original hardware. Well, speaking of original hardware, I connected up my original Xbox yesterday, day before. The hard drive died. The original hard drive that shipped with the machine is dead. So thankfully I installed a mod chip on it last year, so I can just change the hard drive without any help.
Right,
But yeah,
we have to bring 5 bells. We've got 3. Where the fuck?
yeah, I don't see any other bells here. Unless there's like a tower in the distance, we have to use the sniper rifle.
See, I was looking, and they're just like assets away off in the distance. I can't really shoot anything.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck! I see one.
Names.
It's on the fucking. It's on the one chain.
The one chain?
Yeah. There's probably one on this side too. At the very top, I see it.
Got them all.
Got them all.
So now what?
Bring the 5 bells. Oh, well done. Oh, I see
They're
them.
all close by in the towers. Yeah, we got them. I just left Lamash do this, but
It does suck. I was really disappointed, Cloudbus, yeah, because mine was I had it really well configured, and I even had, because I installed the mod chip in my rig last year, I had like the Xbox 360 style blades, dashboard and stuff on it. Just
What?
good.
what's the bits we go down here and everybody's dead?
I hope it was a door. Come on.
Pretty safe bet, I'd say. Or the door will burst open and they'll all get it in front of us.
Well, they're still alive. Something at
One
least.
time or something? Why is it so fucking bright?
I'd cry if my heart. I nearly broke my 3 terabyte one fixing this computer the other day. It was the actual
broke it?
connector. I bent
Aye.
one bit of it, but I managed to kind of set it back
shit.
on and then put the thing on top of it and it worked fine. I was like, okay, there we go.
Oh, that's lucky.
But then I
Well,
had
the
to
original
fight.
Xbox. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I had to fight with the activation, Windows activation not working, and then the profile, Microsoft profile getting
Change your
corrupted.
hardware signature.
Ooh,
Oh, this looks like a boss. It's a big bloater.
yeah, it's a fucking.
Yeah, but the original Xbox, the original hard drive and that was like 8 gig. And the hard drive was locked to the machine as well in software, but with it being modded, it doesn't.
You're asking me?
So that's fine. Like I can just change it.
The sound of switching between them is amazing. Hard drives? Oh, these people are about getting infected.
Yeah, I know, sir. Oh shit, he turned pretty quick, didn't he?
You did,
That's what unleashed this hell.
Why would you jump down and stay up top?
I know.
Dumb.
Where the hell did that thing come from?
Look out for its gas!
Shit. I'm assuming we did that or something. Oh my god, but I'll just keep shooting it, see.
Yep.
Hit. So there's like a prompt on it though.
Did they get up close to me?
I think so. Didn't make it.
Oh, he's climbing up.
So it is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You come over here and try to get the metro,
Don't panic,
man.
people! Just move away from
Right,
it!
Second more
stop.
people.
Everyone, out of the way!
Yeah.
We'll take care of this!
With the sniper guy.
I can
No.
help with the gas sometimes.
He was the hero. He was the true hero of this game. And now he's shooting at us. Damn you,
Like that
Windows
bullshit
sniper
with that
guy.
gas is happening. Oh, save me.
We have to do something. People are dying.
People are dying.
Some of the animations are bullshit in this game. I think I'm missing something that we need to do, yeah. I think we did like burn it or something like that.
Ooh, I have incendiary grenades. It's a coming.
Yep.
What
I
a
expect
shit
to jump
space.
its way. Yeah, I did down it earlier on with the sniper.
He's coming.
Could we not just like leave? All these people are dead.
Yeah,
just
I think
leave.
so. No, this guy's still alive.
No, he's dead. Oh, yeah.
I'm down.
I'm dead.
I'm about to turn into a zombie.
I was right beside you two. That's sick.
Oh, did I actually turn and die? Oh shit, I did.
Oh, it didn't work on this screen, Tomahawk, for some reason.
What happened?
Toggle green screen. I redeemed, but it didn't work. Why? Hold on,
Look, I am sorry, right? But it's fucking unacceptable that you come under the stream with stuff not working. You wouldn't see me doing this of it.
I clearly didn't test that well enough, Tomahawk. Sorry about that. Oh, no, it's
Where the hell did that thing come from?
Right, there's something we're missing here.
The enemy?
No, smugglers. I mean, there's a mechanic we're missing.
Where the fuck did he come out of?
Game. Are you alright?
No, I'm dying.
I can't get you.
I don't even know how. No, I'm dead. Oh no, I'm up. I'm alive.
I will do those squats in a wee bit. Oh, no problem. Right. What are we missing? Flemish, Sierra, do you remember?
Don't panic, people. Just move away from it.
I feel like we're able to save more people than
We'll take care of this.
Also, sorry Tamak, that I didn't test that green screen for whenever I'm in co-op streams like this. I'll fix it for next week. What do we need to do here? Do we just need to shoot this thing, Sarah?
We have to do something. People are dying. Everyone, run!
I think that's what we have to do.
Right, okay. It's ran out of now, so let's get around the other side. Get it. Sack them, let's just jump down. Let them run around afterwards.
That's what I'm doing. What's I'm doing?
I just hear shooting. Sorry. Thought that was you shooting, but I forgot.
No, it's them shooting me.
Enemies.
Them it's this.
Go. Go.
You alright?
Yeah. Nice one. Nice grenade. Oh, I just got one as well.
If we lure him down here, I have an explosive written as well.
Right, okay. Get him.
Shoot her!
No, that was a waste.
He's running for it again. Oh, I got my babe.
Dead. I feel like there's a safety. Oh, it dropped something there. See it?
All them fucking gassy tuts, hey.
I know. The moob. Key card. Of course.
Megan? Megan?
Oh, right, there we go.
Where are
Shooting.
you?
It'll lay eventually. Yep. Oh.
Zed's dead,
Thank you,
baby.
Sarah. Thank you. That's what I mean. This game gets quite intense like that sometimes. Tomahawk,
No,
there's a
it's
trend,
not
by the
church.
way. My
It's
last
not
three
church.
streams. Tomahawk.
It's on church. It's not on. It's not on a tent. It's not. Hook.
Every fucking time.
Hook. It's not. It's
Every
not a
time.
tent. It's on a. It's a church. Hook.
I hate this house. Hate this house. I sign myself up for this every week. That bit's never ending. It is. Tomahawk has a trend. My last three streams, he's found something broken in a redeem. He is like the ultimate bug tester.
Misty was that for me. Although she would spam everything and just test my cooldowns.
Which is fair enough. Like, basically, she
Aye.
does Flemish.
It was my own fault.
Yeah.
It was my own fault. But even now, when someone says to me about a redeem, I was like, is it Flemish proof? Have you put it on a queue?
That's the job.
Let's go.
I think it's ever since that time Ian had the daddy redeem, and Flemish just he broke that man's heart. I could just see the joy drain from Ian's face. He just redeemed daddy over and over and over again.
Andy's timing the other night when we came into
Oh,
Ian's stream for the daddy was brilliant.
hello, my name's Ian.
69
I'm a
daddies.
daddy.
Oh,
69
shoot
daddies
me.
on one stream. It was bad. Like
I wish I believed
It
God
was,
were looking out for us right now.
Ian, I felt so sorry for
We're
you.
on our own.
We need to clean this place, not the ship it.
I think this panel and the numbers on the doors are connected.
Right. 12. 21.
Right, so we don't know what the number is on this door. It's scratched off.
Yeah, and the same with that one as well.
So it's a guessing game.
Right, so what about...
Well, there's a panel up here.
I won't be able to force this one open.
Right. And we're obviously going to release enemies as we do this. As well.
Yes.
Right.
Press
stand up
button.
here.
Right, so what do we think it is? Do we want to open some of these ones?
Aye, go for it. Feck it. Asa, have a gander, this absolute legend of a human being. Asa, it is feckin' good
Asa,
to see you.
what is happening?
Well, folks, if you don't know Asa, I know Asa from like the start when I started streaming. Love him. He lives in the Upside Down, and he is an absolute gem. Lovely.
That's a
lovely.
really cool way of putting it, you know. Loves
Yeah.
an episode. Oh shit, there was somebody in the ground.
I got him.
He violated me.
That channel there, the Retro Asa, is a new enough channel as well. But it has as it's exactly as it says in the ton. He plays retro games on stream, and it is fantastic. Sometimes there's like a wheel spin for like random games. Sometimes it's a dedicated one. Like Chrono Trigger was the recent one, wasn't it? I believe it was Chrono Trigger. Lovely dude. Check him out.
Oh, that was actually, I guessed it. I guessed it.
Nicely job. Well done.
What a mixture of amazing accents. Yeah, I hate their accents. I'm not going
You
to
hate it. But like, so we're both from Derry, but my accent is quite like it's kind of like Derry slash I don't know, feckin'. It's not a strong Derry accent. It's more like Derry Donegal, like a blend.
Yeah.
And yours again sounds different, but we're both technically from the same place. Right, so there's more doors.
And there's another panel up here.
Panel. Right. Okay.
That boy's getting up. I don't like
Fifth
this,
grader
but I
could
can't
bust out of here.
prematurely murder them.
You just have to punch in the numbers in the doors.
Was that one of the fucking pus guys down there on the floor?
Yeah.
Right. The fact he's not moving.
Right, we open that one.
1, 2. Yeah.
I don't think
Good.
I've introduced myself
Asa,
yet.
thank you so much for the follow, buddy. Oh, that's one of the screamers.
Oh, good man, Asa.
Cover your ears. He's going to scream.
He's dead.
Asa, I appreciate you. Thank you.
You'll enjoy Asa. Leyoric,
I follow
because
Asa.
he does a lot of does
Asa's
a lot
good
of
wee-
daytime streams.
Asa's a cool wheeler.
And Asa's like been streaming for years. Very
Asa
entertaining.
streams with his wife as well, doesn't he?
Cookie. Yeah. One of the most memorable streams of Asa's for me was when he first played Jump King. And I played it one time on stream as well, and I was shite at it, but it was hilarious.
We'll go 102.
Alright, go for it. I'm trusting you here.
Our survey says. Right, so 201. Or is that the one I just did?
Oh,
I don't know where
Okay.
that one was. Oh,
Oh,
is it further
really?
up? Where the fuck was
I
that?
think that's in behind the gate that we need to get in.
Is it? Right, okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Jump King was a pain in the walls, but it was great to watch. It was great to watch.
But
What a
wasn't
time
it
to be alive that was.
Wide Boss played it at one point as well, and that
That's
man was
right.
going to kill himself.
Oh, that was amazing. That was amazing. I used to religiously watch
Sorry, we're going.
Gaza.
We're going
Kraken,
streaking
what's happening?
through the quad
loved it.
and into the gymnasium. Come on, everybody!
Kraken, welcome on. We're watching Leyoric figure out some puzzles here. My
Just
beautiful
guessing.
system.
Oh, got it. Got it.
Nicely job. Good.
I'm a bit anxious that we might be missing stuff.
Me too, like resources that we need.
Yeah.
The herbs and stuff in this room here. May as well pick them up.
Did you not get them?
Oh, I forgot that it's for each person, isn't it? No, I'm
Yeah.
good. I'm good. Let's go. Sure to be grand.
No, did you pick them up?
I picked up the herb.
Have you heard of the critically acclaimed MMORPG
Teddy,
Final
what's
Fantasy
happening? How did the rest of your
14?
stream go earlier?
With an expanded free trial, which
handsome?
you can play through the entirety of A Realm Reborn and the award-winning Heaven's Ward,
True.
Stormblood and
this place.
Shadowbringers expansions
be
up to level
close.
80 for free with no restrictions on playtime.
Who?
I love Teddy's
I
welcome.
don't think I've introduced myself yet.
Oh, it's amazing.
Listen, Cookie, thank you very much for following me on your other account as well. Appreciate it.
Ah, there we go. As in Cookie's the main account, yeah. Retraza's the new enough account.
Does that mean Hook, me, and you are now streaming as a couple?
Please be okay.
Technically?
You know, I could do worse. I could do worse.
Definitely.
Eddie, thank you for signing in. What are you, 21 now?
Do worse, but-
Beastmaster?
Do better.
Oh, I knew he was getting up.
Oh, shit. Internet wife.
We're just going to kick him.
Did it? Thank you for the check-in.
Who's the wife? Who, I don't know. Who would be the more domesticated between me and you?
You.
So me then?
You were like a stay-at-home parent and everything.
Yeah.
Up on stage.
Yeah. You know
excellent
what?
job.
Stay-at-home parents are the most difficult job there is, so I'll take it.
100% agree. Much respect. Not all the grief I give you, and of course it's all out of love. But I say to you all the time, as a parent, I genuinely look up to what you do. Genuinely.
Is
No
this me
bother.
you're chatting to, or Legolas?
Yeah, you. No,
All right, happy. All right, thank you.
Legolas.
I was sitting there going, who's he chatting to? Oh,
No, especially when around the time I was becoming a parent, like,
do you know that
Where
not
are
all
you?
jokes are dad puns?
right?
It's only when the punchline becomes apparent.
Fucking diabolical.
As in Cookie's been falling for 4 years.
What
3 months.
timing on that, Flemish?
Jesus. Can. Terry, I added your idea as well. So nobody has got it yet, but there is a possibility that someone can get a Senzu beam, and their power level for today will double. So, sorry, your gains that you get today doubles.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. But
She's not
it's
here
rare
either.
to get.
Who are we looking for?
Who are we looking for?
Deborah, apparently. I don't even know who Deborah is.
Deborah?
Deborah, if you're here, give me a sign.
Deborah!
Is Deborah in the room with us? Like what's the story?
Is this Deborah? Oh shit, Deborah's fucked.
Or Deborah was taking a poop. Disturbed it.
We just walked in the bathroom. She hid behind boxes. They have a shit. And we just battered her and broke her head.
I was all sorry the door was locked. Wild sorry about that.
Tell me what you want.
And that was like the
There's
gifts.
zombie coming to life.
Oh, Legolas!
Oh,
Doing a Cleo
excuse
treat?
me?
Give me a wee second, Hook.
Ooh,
No.
ah, take your time.
What do you say?
Cleo.
No. No. I'm not gonna give you a treat if you tell me
Bettergy.
that. What do you say?
Please, please, please.
Baby.
Fuck out of here.
I need to bump the contrast up on that camera just so you can see her better.
There she is. I have your stream up the side too. We don't, hey.
Maybe way.
We. Sup, flum?
Properties.
Out the hips.
If I configure device, configure video.
He would tell me I'm shite. Not at all. I was singing your
There,
praises
there
earlier
we
on, like,
go.
Excuse me.
There we go. There's the fluff right now. Sucking diesel. Look at her. Look at her in her majesticness.
We don't. Tap back in.
Best.
Look at her. You being attacked there?
Oh no, I just going back into the game and had nothing.
Oh, right. Okay.
I can't lock any more herbs, so I'm going to start combining them. Give me a wee second.
I love my
Go for it.
break.
I love my brick.
Combine. Store in case. Okay. Inventory
Go to the wing. Welcome on. How are you getting on? What is the
Hello?
story? I was on your stream with... Oh, never mind. With May there the other night. You were playing some Fortnites, which is a game I had to force myself to get the level 100 with on a battle pass because Optimus Prime was in it.
That's right. I played it with Master Chief. Go to Time is a fantastic username.
Oh! What the
Makes me
fuck
think-
froze?
Oh, that's cool. Makes me think of Gundam, Go to Wing. Like, it's probably not that, but I don't know, it just makes me think of it. Is that Debs?
Your woman, she was really angry. She just needed the vent. Just needed the vent.
Damn it! Deborah!
You're getting kind of tired of stringing me along. Are you gonna fill me in here or what?
I will. It's just, we're running out of time. Please, Leon. Bear with me.
We
a
are
little
just a
longer.
mob of hooligans just going around punching people.
Why are these fighting? Oh, no, they're just boxes. I was about to say, why are these fighting cabinets made of cardboard? Is that very person? They're just boxes. I put the file in a filing cabinet.
Do you ever watch AT Crowd?
Yeah.
You ever
Not,
see
I haven't watched it start to finish.
when you're
watched it.
Oh, the game was just glitchy there every second. Your woman starts dating a fella called Peter, and Roy's like, "Oh, come on, give me your email address." He's all, "It's file.peter@hotmail.com," and he's like, "File.peter? Yeah, because my name is Peter File." Peter File, and also, who's a pedophile? He's all, "No, Peter File." You would just go by Pete.
You would. You would. You're stuffing your face. What'd you get, Legolas?
Ooh.
I was actually saying to Mrs. Hooke that I was going to get you a takeaway for helping us out. And I was like, nah, she's being good.
Food needs
So never
shared.
eat a takeaway, we kick your ass.
Food needs shared in the Discord.
Turbo, what's happening? Look, because you're on a meeting? No worries at all.
Turbo!
No worries.
What is the story?
Food does need shared in the Discord, that is true.
I think it's a legal requirement now at this point.
What am I? A bit of chat there.
Chicken and sweet corn. Chicken and sweet corn is exciting.
Good.
I like chicken and sweet corn, a bit of rice.
Aye. It's underrated, you know.
I was going to tell a wee joke about it, but it'll be a bit too corny.
What the hell is all this?
None of these
What
were
the
here
heck?
3 days ago.
You were here 3 days ago.
I know.
Turbo,
I
not a
think
problem.
Helena's hallucinating.
That sounds delicious. I know. So Turbo is also... Where'd you say Az was from again? The in between?
The upside down.
The upside down.
The upside down.
Yes.
Ada.
Yes. Turbo's also in the upside down. VHS. Man of taste. Have some behind me.
Oh. Sea virus.
Sea virus. Okay. It's like a larva. Oh, is that the fucking annoying guys that grow out of limb?
I don't know. His head and shoulders above the rest, though. Oh, shit. Nope.
Never
Boobs.
mind.
Boobs.
Yep.
Boobs. Zombie boobs. COVID run.
She doesn't look like a zombie. She just looks like she's covered in crap.
We have now gone on the Stellar Blade. It's moist bums all around. Richard's boobs.
Is that Helena?
No, I don't know who it is.
Happy birthday, Ada Wong.
It's
Oh,
not
is
Ada
that
either. No, fucking isn't. Doesn't look like her.
Is this what you wanted to show me?
Simultaneous boners were popped.
No. I thought...
Yeah, these guys are going to break out of these, aren't they?
Of course.
Surprise! They
the
made
hell
Ada
did I
a
just
white
see,
woman.
Ada?
They did not, did they?
So that woman...
Is that actually Ada?
You know her?
So they just
She was
made her
Asian?
non-Asian.
Yeah.
Talk about Disney whitewashing things.
I may skip RE5 and 6 and just... I honestly would. Me.
Yeah, we're just doing it just for the completionist in us, and
Yeah.
the fact that Flamash loves them so much. But
Yeah. Flummus begged us to play them.
apparently 7's great. I'm looking forward to playing 7.
But yeah, I would
Right.
say just skip.
No point going back anyway.
Leon!
Right.
I'm kidding. I have to do them in order. I have bad OCD. See, I'm kind of the same. I will play...
Weird.
Okay.
It's telling us to go that way, but we can't. Oh, it's,
But
it's got a red
two...
light. Needs to be green.
We have to press 201 somewhere.
Okay.
Is there a computer? Yeah, there's one here.
This again?
Okay.
This again?
Right, it's obviously going to wake those things up too.
Yeah.
Go shoot one of the things just to see.
Do we just run?
I think so.
Leon, let's go.
Oh, shit! There's a big enemy in there. Well, on a table. Still. Oh, is it that table we were just watching? We ate one.
I think so. It's our... Oh, look at this next room.
Oh, like, holy moly!
I thought Silent Hill was squelchy. Look at this. Look at this. Carry on.
I've been enjoying your playthrough, Silent Hill, I have to say.
I'm loving it. Like, the game is horrific, but I love it.
Yeah.
Speds, well. Look who it is.
Speds, what is happening, you legend?
Welcome, man. Man's playing first Berserker
Speds went live
Kazan.
the other night. At like midnight. I said, Speds, I'm 35. What are you doing? I was going to write it in chat, and I was like, no, I don't want to write that.
Squelch viral horror.
It was like midnight. It's like, I'm an old man.
Ooh, boss progress is nearly filled up. That sounded wrong.
They called her in another stream. Anna the Asian. You have to do the R's in order. I have bad OCD. Be prepared. Like 5 and 6 are very action based. This is kind of more like the original so far. This campaign.
The
other campaign.
The big advice we got from everybody is if you're doing 5 and 6, play it with somebody. Don't do it with the AI. AI. Oh, there's so many enemies, and there's a map.
He was doing a community game night with some peeps. I did see that to be fair, but yeah, I hung out for a wee bit and then about. And it was one of those ones I was like, if I start yapping, then I'll feel bad. Then I want to up and go to sleep. So I just watched instead for a wee bit.
Right. So, go on, come on here.
Right. Sorry.
Right. So there's a
distracted by hearing dogs.
There's a generator. There's a switch, and there's a map. Like I'm assuming we have to get to that other side. I don't know what the switch
That
does.
scared me, Ted. Lurking Ted, no worries at all. Thank you very much. Made me jump.
Father! More pull up.
Fuck it. That's the worst that could happen.
Right, so let's open the new area, and everything is probably going to kill us now when we go in here. Could we just run, you reckon?
Why does everything have to be complicated?
No,
There's dogs.
They're below us, though, I think.
Oh, this guy's not dead. Look at this grab.
Get out of here.
What the hell got me? Oh shit, I'm on the other side. We're separated. What's going on?
This is how I enter your chat from now on.
That's the big boss always does that with the wrath one as well. Why are we separated?
Big boss is well funny. I don't know. I pulled the lever. That might be why.
Why did you do that for?
Because I seen the chance to get away from me and I took it.
There's
a ladder I can get in. There's a platform I can go down actually. So I'll jump down.
Stand.
Grand. Oh, there's the dog there. It sounds like a cage. Sounds like an enemy behind me. I'm gonna keep moving.
Oh shit!
One.
No!
There's another one.
I'm up here fighting this still.
Okay. I'm back.
I have a lever here to pull.
I forgot to say, hold on, I got attacked.
You alright?
Yeah, just hidden.
Spence, thank you very much for the sub as well. Appreciate
Hurry,
it.
Leon. You gotta activate this thing.
you still alive?
I don't know, Claire. I don't know how I'm still alive. Another lever has been pulled. Which puts me here? Hey, I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. Does this take me down?
Thank you for the soap, man. That is so kind.
Do you have a lever to pull?
And yourself? Oh, hold on. Multitasking.
Spades, that's super generous, buddy. Really, no one's under any obligation to ever sub. But I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Folks, Speds is new enough to streaming as well. Another local lad. And he's really sorry.
Local.
Really sorry. Another local. But dude, thank you very much for the sub. Caught me completely off guard. I changed back to my OG alerts. They're my alerts from like the very start of streaming because my fancy achievement ones broke.
Oh, because you hate my Halo.
What was that noise?
You hate my Halo ones. Hate them.
No,
hate them.
I have the Halo one set up for when I'm playing a Halo game. I'm not playing a Halo game.
Do you have a switch that you can pull now?
Not that I can see.
It's in the wee room I'm in. The square room. Oh, you're on the same side as me.
Yeah, I'm on the same side. Gonna bounces as a 4:30 start tomorrow. GG guys, and thanks for the stream. Tomahawk, thank you very much, dude. Sorry, I've been struggling to keep up with chat tonight.
There's a switch over there. We have to get.
Right, but one of us can go on this left then.
Yeah, but the left doesn't do anything.
Oh, here, come to me. Come to me. I can boost you up.
Ah, right, that's what it is.
Potato.
Oh, look, there's a few of them up here.
I really enjoy being with you.
Oh my god, thank you very much, mate, for the butts. Oh shit.
Okay, mate. Kira, thank you very much for the streak, dude. Yeah, absolute legend. What is the crack? Here, Kira got a new PB. Am I right in saying?
Ooh, very nice.
In Resi as well, Kira. New one. Oh, mate, thank you for the butts as well. Jeez,
These are all super generous as we're fighting these zombies.
As we're so confused and run away, but what the fuck do we have to do? We're so distracted.
Where are you?
I'm running up to you.
Oh, there you go. Right, okay.
We got to
just
run. Yes. That's
we'll
what
do it together.
Let's try and kill these fuckers so we can actually... Whoa. Why are they blowing up?
Well, I threw a grenade at them.
That would do.
There were switches on the other side, but there was too many of them around me.
Yeah, let's work our way around. May, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.
Oh,
Met
fuck.
May through yourself, Leyoric?
That's right, yeah.
Or May rebranded.
May raided me when I was playing Resident Evil 2.
That's right, yeah.
Plays a variety
Honestly,
of different
lovely.
games and really high energy, really good crack.
Aye.
Lovely wee community as well, she is.
I just about to say the Discord's class as well. Oh,
Leon.
Oh,
so annoying.
there, we'll get these switches.
Right. Yeah. Next time we co-op, we play Valheim or something. Something's a bit more chill.
Like a
easily
generalized
chat.
bald ginger man.
Come on.
I think we can start it for dinner and an out. Chicken drumsticks. I want to see pictures. I want to see pictures.
Ooh, yep. Pictures are
We
most.
head off. Thor needs
Thank
a
you
walk.
very much.
Sierra, no problem. I'm assuming Flamash is the same.
Yeah.
Thank you folks for coming on.
Thank you.
Enjoy
Kayla.
your night.
Folks, if you don't know Flemish and Sierra, they are husband and wife, and they are hilarious. And they do co-streams like this, but they're not the same name. So you'll often see Sierra looking disgusted to the side at her husband, who we also love. So check him out.
He's not a bad egg. He's gone now. We can talk nice about him. He's not a bad egg.
He's a good one. We'll say nice things now, but he's not here.
I know. He'll never hear us.
Exactly. Yeah. I do love the melee system in this game.
It's very, very smooth, isn't it?
Yeah, it's...
Fuck up you. Oh, fuck, he's attracting everybody.
When he does that.
Yep, he does. I'm not getting much of the ammos.
Are you not? He was pretending to be dead, that boy. Crafty little shit. Oh, watch your back. We're surrounded here. Come on.
She doesn't like they not hold on to us. She's literally just holding on pretty like, oh, there she is. Right, okay.
There's too many enemies for me to help you.
There's too many of them.
Right, let's go.
Right.
Hey, you have to make a run for it. Come on.
There we go. Shit first, ask questions later. Shit.
Fuck me.
Shit first, ask questions later, because the shit, we're going on the garbage shit. It's shit.
There's a shared hype train. I'm just ignoring it. There's a shared hype train. Thank you very much. You're very kind. I'm only joking. That's mean.
There's too many of them. There was like 3 of them. That's 3 is too many. He is a lady.
That's too many. One zombie is too many, I would argue. Unless you're Billy Butcherson. If you get that reference, then you're cool.
Because you probably wouldn't believe me. That's why I want to show you. And when I do, you'll have all the answers and proof you'll need.
So she's being deliberately vague.
She is. It'll work us. I'm the bad guy in this.
You are the bad guy. You're going to double cross me. That's what's going to happen.
Yep. 3 is a crowd. I'm not cool. Spade is flat out. 8 people minimum. Our orgies are boring. Just boring.
So back at that lab.
Where are you in Kazan?
Is your friend in it? What's the
Out
story
of
on her,
curiosity.
anyway?
I've not played it, but I watched Leyoric religiously play it. Like, loved it. Vicariously.
I love that game so much.
That's only fair, I guess.
You completed it 100%, didn't you?
I thought I went back then, did the platinum.
Sad days, how will not get a sequel?
Oh no. Well, it wasn't the most popular Ben Starr game that came out at that time. That's the problem.
Well, that's true. I felt like that was going to break. I'm surprised it didn't.
Yeah, I kind of felt like it was too.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. Lad. There we go. Some bolts and some
very dark, isn't it?
Come on, Deborah.
I know we're
What's
underground.
wrong with you?
But fuck me, it's dark.
But you have to listen to the sound of the underground.
Fucking. I was about to say, alright, Sugar Babes, but that scares loud, isn't it?
I don't actually know who sings it. I
think
installed, what do you call it? Reshade on mine.
Yes.
So if you look at mine, is mine a little bit brighter?
Yours is more vivid.
Yeah.
I shall say.
Because there was a few filters I filtered away, and this one had made the dark areas look a bit better. Ignite us!
Maybe I should do the same for next stream. Ignite us!
Going into the third areas. Oh, nice. So there's what I love about Kazan is you have 3 weapons to choose from, and depending on which weapon you pick, certain bosses are really easy and certain are really difficult. The boss that actually took me the longest to beat, a lot of people had on their easiest list because they were using spears.
Because they had the range where you were up on its face.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I shoot Deborah, never mind.
Right sword for the one. The Cloud Buster sword for the one.
Deborah!
Ad's about to start.
Deborah!
Actually, where is it?
Can you hear me?
You see it? No. Cloud Buster sword for the one.
Helena?
Tired long shift? Oh, no way. Well, it's almost the weekend. Who are we hugging? Who's this?
Right, so is this Deborah or Ada? What's the story?
Okay. Enough with the mystery. What the hell is going on here?
Let's just get her out of here.
I wasn't Leon into you.
I'll tell you everything. I promise.
She's still not
Did you
telling
also
him.
see Squall's gunblade on your arm?
Yes. Squall's Gunblade right there. If you type
Good
on
eyeballs,
exclamation mark
Speds.
tattoos, a
Hang
wee
in there,
thing on
Sis.
my tattoos will come up.
You take care of her. Leave any
You got
hostiles to
mushroom.
me.
This is a Monster Hunter reference? Yes.
Great
Also,
sword
I
for
can't
one,
even
that.
shoot. I can't even shoot. I'm carrying this girl.
Oh, brilliant. Well, how about you get on my back and we'll just make it even quicker?
We all need somebody to lean on.
Deborah, can you hear me? I'm gonna get you home.
I can't even lift items.
This way.
Do you not like it? I thought it was pretty good.
That was pretty good. I just don't want to give you the credit.
Well, fuck you. I can't
I know
attack
where
her
to
in
go.
this case. I have it
this
as
way.
a kid.
RKO! That's right, just keep going. I love when you RKO. It's fantastic.
Oh, she fell somehow.
The roof is caving in.
Oh, the roof is caving in.
Go, go, go.
Leon, help!
For goodness sake, Leor.
Yes. For goodness sake. It's the PG version.
I love that became a thing as well for a while.
Oh, full on thing. Started in Chris Akira's stream, didn't it?
Oh, no, it was for fuck's sake. For goodness sake was the other week when Mike was front page and we weren't allowed to say bad words.
Oh, I remember that now, actually. The same stream that Mike was like, right, no cursing, and then he immediately...
I can't pinpoint your position at all.
right at the start.
What the
Oh,
hell
shit,
is
I
going
found
on?
it. I lost you now.
Hunnigan, come in.
There's a thing has to be pushed over.
There we go. Wait. There's a lot of enemies coming, so stay close.
Stay close to me. There we go. I'm out and around.
Right, sweet.
Oh, there's another one over here. If you could push this
Push
thing.
this. Hold on, there's a little bit of enemies here. Keep moving. Go, go, go.
Go away.
Sputter.
You alright?
What shit? I got a sputter in the face there.
Hey! That's end of a good night.
Someone spits in your face? I love that.
Hey. Don't knock it till you try it.
There we go.
That's just Speds. That's all my tattoos at the moment. That was my most recent one's that Acres one. I fucking love it.
Mike does censoring. Searching for partner? What?
It says
What
that
the
in
fuck
mine too.
happened
Don't know.
What the heck?
Ooh.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Yeah, it was also Ty that did my, like Tyrone did my most recent tattoo.
You're the one now.
Which I can maybe show on stream without showing my foot.
Getting naked, folks. He's getting naked.
This way.
Only hooks.
Whitford?
Only hooks.com.
Whitford?
Only hooks.
I can't really show it off.
No, it's hard to see. You have to take a
It's the
picture and
best
load it
it's
up.
the best I can show.
I
Yeah,
don't
I
like
must put a
dragging
picture
on
in
my
the
arm.
Discord.
I call him George, and it is an appropriate name for him. He should be called George. With a good tattoo, but I'm a wuss. Nah, man. Once you start getting tattoos, it's addictive as fuck. Also, just load
It's
the
really
shit
not
back
that
again.
bad. Spits.
Did your game load on?
Deborah,
Yeah, I'm loaded
hold
on
on,
too.
we're almost
Since
there.
we're still actually in a shared game, or
Deborah,
not?
stay with me, all right?
We could. Ooh, she's
Holy
fired.
No, Deborah!
You're fired.
Oh, so she's like all the other ones.
On my arm. Oh, very nice.
No, this can't be happening.
Don't touch it. What's wrong with you?
Do you know what happened? She was out in the sun and she got sunburned and now her skin's all peeled. She didn't put on cream.
Is this Ada Wong 2 from Raccoon City 2? Being born?
2 Ada, 2 Wong.
Okay, yeah.
Sure.
Speaking of Ada.
Leon awkwardly. No!
There she is.
No, it's not.
Ada.
No, that really isn't.
Fucking white
You
Ada.
look like you've seen a ghost.
It's cosplay. That's Ada from Comic Con.
It's Timu Ema. Ada. Wish.com Ada.
Call him George. I'm only saying that now, Ignitus.
Why is my dog working?
I'm sure it was painless.
Ada,
Too
what
long
the
to
hell is
figure
going
out.
on here?
It's complicated.
Just checking from
Ada, why are you now a different race? It's complicated.
But this isn't the time.
Because there really shouldn't be anyone at my front door at half 10 at night.
Well, that is true. I heard Cleo
These
barking.
walkways won't hold. We need to get to the lower levels. So sorry, Deborah. It's all my fault.
Instead of just walking out, they actually look at
Stop! Don't shoot, please!
No, nobody.
We're on a boss
Welcome out.
fight, you just put us in it. Good, no choice, sir.
I'll get Griffin on my arm just to spite you. Ooh, Griffith on my arm just to spite you. Ooh, and spite moves. But we're separated again.
We're separated. Oh, I have Wada. Wada, Ada.
Wada?
Way to go.
Deborah!
Wada.
Where are you?
Right, is this... Helena needs help. Never mind about Deborah.
I don't like the fact that I didn't get a teammate here. Not a fan of
Okay,
this.
that's pretty cool.
Here.
Yin Yang, I suppose. You monster.
Don't get the wrong idea. It'll make sense later.
Okay.
Huh?
I don't like New Ada. I don't like this.
I don't do it.
Feels wrong and inappropriate. Was there a big kickoff about this when this came out?
I don't know, because she looks completely different than Resi 4. Or not Resi 4. Whatever one she was in. Ah, it's Resi 4, isn't it?
Resi 2 as well.
Resi 2. Ah, Resi 2 is the one with the whole timer section and all.
No, wait, how much?
Ah, there's like the time section you have to use the scanner.
Oh, it's not time. But he
Watch out, you two.
played his
She's strong.
Watch out for yourself.
Right, so I'm down here now with her. Fantastic.
Glass. What is she doing?
I have no idea.
I don't think I can jump
Yeah.
her. Oh, I can jump her.
She's a scorpion?
Get over here.
Shoot that TNT. Hello.
Have you both played RE4? We have done, yes. RE4 Remake is phenomenal.
Get the fuck away from her. You dumbass. This is fucking not PG.
I love the fact that my character's going over to hug her, and then once it comes back to me, I'm shooting her.
You should put her down.
Like, oh no, don't hurt her. Shut up, Jaka.
This is a nightmare. You can't be real.
That's right. She used it.
I can't do anything.
What are the usual weak spots? What's his name?
Yeah, go to dark weak spots. Let's go.
Yeah. One simple trick with every enemy. Go weak spot.
Too close. Not too close.
Oh. That's three.
Where's Sub-Zero? I know. He's with Elsa and Frozen.
So it is. I don't want to build a snowman.
I will not let it go. I am the ninja Belinque.
Ada! Elena! A little help here?
The more
It
things
is my
change,
bitch.
the more they stay the same.
Oh, you did it. Good.
Oh. Well, I'm not driving it, I'm just on it.
What are you on? Dirt?
Yeah. Let's get back on that series. I have started the first book. You did?
I think debris just fell on my head. Yeah, I did.
What, like a cheese? What? What's the matter? Be like me, I camembert cheese jokes. I thought that one was good, Come on.
Like, why did it make me crawl there and then allow me to immediately?
You have a wee bar that pulls up. Hello! At least I made it in the middle of the stream. Rod, what's up?
Rod, welcome on, buddy. Did you get sorted with your books?
Turn around.
Fuck you. Wait, am I trying to get the user? What's this one? Oop.
I should probably organize taking some health. Worked. Work.
Oh, I have to do something here. Oh, did that wrong? That's me moving me, I think.
Oh, it is.
Nicely job. Now I can get on. There we go, back together.
All aboard.
Teamwork! Baja Blast went up in smoke. You what?
Let's hope this is a non-stop ride out of here.
Baja Blast.
It's a Taco Bell drink?
Oh, this isn't it?
Oh, fuck. We have to stop getting hit by stuff.
Yep.
What does it want me to press?
A and X. Just for all your keyboard.
Stop it, Deborah! This isn't you!
I think you're going mad, Helena. Deborah's ending up here, but also looks like a scorpion at the same time.
Wouldn't say no.
Deborah!
Go on it.
Stop crying. I'm trying to kill you. You think I know that?
Fuck's sake.
Thank you, Archie.
Yeah, I'm maybe bad. Oh, Ada, come up with something. Nice one.
Oh, she's behind us now. She's behind us now.
Deborah, my slime queen.
Right, Ada, you do all the work. Thank you. Oh shit. You shot that.
Got it.
Nice. Oh, she's in front of us. Oh, no, she's to the side of us. If she's holding a lantern, we could shoot that lantern. Oh my god. Oh my god. Fuck, I was meant to duck it.
Mine's just 2 buttons to duck, which is stupid.
That's just mine. Right, can we get off this shit roller coaster yet?
Health and safety is not a concern here, you know.
Bollocks. She's way too strong. I think we were saved by the cutscene there, maybe.
I think so as well. Board. Face Claw, the movie.
Are you here?
Deborah!
Deborah. Moaning, am I?
Debbie's on a vacation far away.
What a song. Helena, stop being stupid. Let her go.
Now who sounds like
No
Elsa?
more tears. Not until I avenge your death. Please. Forgive me.
Okay. I didn't have
That
this bingo card tonight.
No.
Deborah's not dead. Bye, Slimy. I know, how did she even hold on there for that long?
Pay for this. Look at me. It's gonna be okay. Look at me. Look at me. It's gonna be okay. Just keep your eyes on me.
Oh, flashback.
I'm gonna get you out of here, Deborah. Deborah, look at me. We're gonna get through this.
We're gonna get through this.
Get away from Not her. Not my sister.
Oh, she's her sister?
Take me.
She's been saying it the whole
Now
time.
I understand why. Did she? I just heard her saying Deborah. I didn't hear sister.
Please don't hurt her.
I don't think I've introduced myself yet.
Dark
Right,
Derpies,
now it makes
welcome on. Thank you very much for the follow.
I helped.
Leyoric, when is the worst time to go for an Elsa
I
convention?
helped Simmons breach the
Sneaking
president's
contest?
security.
Let it go.
That sounds like Simmons, all right.
Why the hell would he do all this?
Dark Derpies,
Long
what is
story.
happening? What is the crack with you? Love Resi, 1990s OG are the best. The OGs are phenomenal.
We're a
I do
place
like the
of people
remakes though.
who really run this
But me and
I
Hooke
do
are
too.
making our way through them. RE2
in a
remake is my
very
personal favorite.
dangerous game.
You've been speedrunning it or learning to as well.
Hand right?
I tell you what, RE4 OG as well is phenomenal.
Because it's either 2 or 0 is my favourite so far.
Leon, where are you?
Simmons
Leon.
Futuristic phone.
there. Hunnigan, you need to be careful. I think he's the one.
Not
who
much,
did
got
it.
off work, decided to explore Twitch for some Resident Evil. Well, welcome on. Thank you very much for the follow.
Simmons.
We played
Mark, thank you
and
very
finished
much for the
5,
follow as
and
well.
now we're playing Resident Evil 6. So,
Yeah. Oh, chapter done. Nicely job.
the control
Thank you
scheme,
very much for the follow.
the control scheme, the networking, and the actual mechanics of the game are the biggest bosses so far.
So you might understand this, Dark. We kept getting invaded, I think is the right term, where like a random person would join our game.
I think
Yeah,
your
keep
Dark
killing
Souls games have spilled over into this one. That's what happened.
Yeah. That's why I always play them offline.
Still
For
have to
that
play
very
the
reason.
new one.
Oh,
What's the
RE9?
news?
Do you mean Dark?
Oh,
Nine,
RE9,
correct?
yeah.
Well,
Raw
it's
Dark
not the
Souls,
newest
love those
remake.
two.
Oh, well, you're going to fit in well here, Dark. I have just last stream, so I stream. Leyoric streams Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. I stream Tuesday, Sunday. Apart from tonight, I'm live on a Wednesday because we're doing core. But I've recently finished the first DLC for Dark Souls 2, like as in Sunday past. I still have the other 2 to do. I still have Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring and all those to play. I finished Dark Souls 1, Demon Souls, and Bloodborne so far. I think Bloodborne's my favourite.
See, I'm the other way. I'm the non-From Soft Souls games like Lies of
You're
P,
Souls-like.
First Berserker Kazan, Neo, things like that.
Yeah, you're a Souls-like. for
Although
sure.
Sekiro, I played Sekiro. Finished Sekiro.
You did? And fair play to you for doing that. DS2 DLC is not gentle. It isn't, Ian. You're completely right, you know, because the base game of DS2, I wouldn't say easy, but compared to the DLC, it was. That's for sure. It's fucking insane. Oh, we
Dark
got
Souls
games
3,
to
top
make it.
tier, Bloodborne, God tier, Elden Ring, just so satisfactory.
I can't wait to get the Elden Ring. Can't wait.
I
I've heard
I
nothing
wanna-
but good things about Dark Souls.
want to
3.
play Dark Souls 3, I've heard. People love Dark Souls 3.
I can't wait. That'll be next for me after Dark Souls 2's DLCs. Fume Knight, Dark. So there's been 2 bosses out of Souls games I've played so far. Bloodstar Beast took me like 14 attempts. I even took a break from the game because it drove me insane. The rest of the game was fine. Like at the last 3 bosses, like Moon Presence and stuff, did in first try. It was fine. Fume Knight took me like 20 something tries. And then we did Surlon on Sunday night in like the 3rd or 4th try. Like, so the DLC, Ian's right, the DLC is way more difficult than the base game. But yes, Bloodborne, I'm going for the Platinum Bloodborne tomorrow. Offline, because I'd already played it on the show. Who goes to the gym to lift weights? He wears black Under Armour. Dark Souls, I wish it was Dark Souls. Bulgeborn. I wish it was fucking. I wish it was. Right, let's buy another perk. 13,900. Probably defense.
That's right. Ian did a Deathless run of Bloodborne as well.
He did.
Right at the very start when I started following him.
Yeah, I remember
3
that,
days
and
to be the
I
boss.
remember being so impressed.
You stopped playing Dark Souls 3 for like 3 months. You love that though, because it's you get slightly better every time and you learn the boss, and then when you eventually beat him, you're like, yeah. Ian though had trauma with Ozma and Kazan.
Oh god, mine not.
That was like what, 2 or 3 solid streams, like. And
Yep.
Ian never played Bump. Oh, that's true. You never played it after that again. Your Deathless run.
Took you 3 days to beat. Oh, Vic. Well, you'll see me attempt that boss at some stage, Dark.
The
Sometime
president
soon.
spoke highly of you, Agent Kennedy.
Likewise.
Ian never played
friends for 30
Bloodborne.
years.
Deathless
Tell
in
me,
Bloodborne is
is it true
impressive.
you were the only ones present at the time of his death?
Was Ian though? I wasn't sure. I
What are
wasn't
you
there.
saying?
He spiraled, he did.
You must be aware that you are both
Suspects in this attack.
What?
What?
Agent Harper,
At
Well,
the time of the
potentially
attack,
me,
you
but
had
not Liam.
abandoned your post.
leaving the president vulnerable.
I'm just here
You must
with my
admit
handsome
such
hair
behavior
in the background.
is suspicious.
Son of a bitch!
You're the one who planned all this!
With what evidence could you base such an outrageous accusation?
Your creepy tone. The way you're talking's a bit weird.
You're British accent.
Oh,
That's a
nice
good-
squall sexy.
You're-
Not cause
Villains always have a British
liar!
accent.
If the two of you
feel so strongly about your innocence, then you should have no problem turning yourselves in.
Is that your woman from RE4 that was always talking you through stuff?
I'm gonna make him pay.
The girl with the glasses?
Looks like things just
Oh,
went
aye.
from bad to worse.
It
Leah.
does. Oh, okay. Good spot.
Understatement king. Things have got from bad to worse. No way,
14.5
Leah. Are you
hours.
serious? No way.
Yeah. Are you reloading there? I may do the same. Reload all the.
Just I don't want to do it in the middle of combat.
Yeah. Right. Hopefully there's no more Marys shooting us with laser beams here.
She's our honey. Oh, honey. Hunnigan? Right, okay. Recognized her there.
Right. Ah, good spot. I didn't make that correlation. Although you've recently played Resi 4, it was like a year or two ago for me.
Yeah, that's true.
2 years, I think.
You and I are in the same boat now. I'd say that officially makes us partners.
Really, Leon?
No.
After all we've just gone through, now we're
Look at
partners.
this Simmons.
You cheeky
So all
bastard.
this belonged to Simmons.
It's no really trust.
Well, with that lab of his sitting
No, it
right
doesn't.
on
Like,
top
he
of
trusts
us,
Ada, and she is the most
I'm gonna
untrustworthy
climb on a limb
person.
and say yes.
So this Ada, you really trust her?
Oh, you get open now. Nice.
That's
Camp.
not an easy question to answer.
Hidden history there, huh?
I like the way there now you went, oh, you can open these, and then you walked off and left that one.
I didn't get a prompt with the other ones, did you? Oh, because already open. That's why. Okay, okay. Beat it, Snake. Snake, press the action button.
Colonel, there's a ladder. Snake, they climb the ladder, walk up to it, push the action button.
Trust Ada with my loins. So, for everyone in chat that's played the Resi games, what's your favourite? It's always a polarizing answer.
Well, oh, well,
Who does their decorating, I wonder?
I am going to practice how to do that, because
Said a prayer or
I don't
two
even know
while
what the
we
run
were
button
still
is on
up
this.
in the cathedral. Why is it
Get
the
up,
dead
Leon.
can ever stay dead?
See? No. Yeah,
I'm on the ground.
is it crouched?
Ah, but I didn't need to be. I couldn't figure out how to get up. Right, I think I'm alright. Right, I want to see you attempt that. Go.
Fuck, I need to figure out my buttons first. I don't know what run is. Right, you know what?
Shift,
We're going to go in the menu. We're going to find out what this shit is. Right, so run is...
RE3 OG, right. RE2 Remake. Remake of 2. Resident Evil Zombies, Ate My Neighbors. So 2 remake. 2 seems to be the most popular choice. 3 remake people seem to think is the poorest remake to date. Is the general sort of consensus that I've seen.
There is no button for run. Where is run?
Must be shift. It's usually
No,
shift
it's not.
playing keyboard and mouse. No?
No.
Ah, feck knows. No, in this game it's probably tab or something. Or alt. Something weird.
I love it. Where is no run button?
D8. And Leyoric is still trying to figure out how to run.
I can slide?
Run is M. As in run on your mouth. Oh, there you go. Just scroll now. That's what I did.
There we go.
Yeah, wee balls. Nicely done.
Wee balls. RE2 remake for me, Ian. I'm the exact same.
Yeah,
RE3 OG
remake
is also good.
fantastic. Work out. I got an achievement for that. Stealth attack. Love it. Right. Obviously we have to extinguish this flame somehow.
Oh, heavenly, more than a mile.
I was just about to. Those flames will kill you in an instant.
Thank you, Sammy.
You gotta find a way around.
With the silly cows.
Silly cows, and I am not a silly cows. I am a strong and agile German shepherd. Kinda do
I don't see anything.
You could lock me up.
Oh, right, okay. Is there a ladder you throw down or something?
Nope. There's a hole. Big one to a hole.
Okay. Good luck.
Sure,
I'm gonna get attacked. Yep.
I was like, Rhoda's feeling all peppery today. What? I was expecting to find an actual cow. It is not the silly cow.
Driving back from Dublin today, I did get a good chuckle. And Mrs. Hooke was like, "You're such a child." But there was a cow leaning on its head on a fence post and like proper scratching. And you could tell it was like hitting the spot. And I was like, "That cow is love." And I don't know why I was laugh so much. And she was like, "You're such a child."
Was the cow lying down or standing up?
Oh, nice, nice.
Was it lying down or standing up?
Stand up.
That's right. If it was lying down, it would have been ground beef.
Trying to shoot that green. There. But there's a lever over here.
But that puts the fire back on.
This writing
Oh.
on the door. Set forth evidence of.
I'm
assuming we need to
assuming.
use it.
I am assuming things are going to come running out.
Simmons family tree.
I think you're right. Probably just as rotten as he is.
Right.
But
What
what
do
does
we
it
do with
mean
this
by
door?
evidence?
The ring Ada gave me.
A ring? When did she give you a ring?
Oh, we're married. We're married. Married now. It's official.
It's such a great redeem. Great redeem.
What was it?
The fuck's like Leyoric.
How dare you?
Thanks for the gift, Ada.
I remember saying that to you when you were starting to stream, and at that stage you didn't have your name in your bio. Mind you had your name in your bio for quite a while then.
Yeah.
But at the start you were like, "Oh no, people don't know my name," and I was like, "Ah, fair enough, that's alright." Now people do. Yeah, you were right. We do have to use that to burn people. That did indeed. Is that right there? Thank you, Richard. You got me with that one.
I get you good.
There's almonds dropping in beside me. What the fuck? What's dropping from above?
What do you have to? Is the door opening?
Millions of them? I don't know.
Oh, one got me.
The door is not open though. You keep going.
Do you want to do this because I have to do W-A-S and D whenever I'm doing it? It's weird.
I already done it. What did you have to do WASD to turn that?
Yes, and over and over and over again. It's weird.
I'm just using the analog thing. Can you do it?
Also, this.
Definitely another song that. Parade. The door open yet?
Nope.
She's hard to find.
Hard to find
Wait, your
staff.
real name is not Leyoric.
Ada chameleon. She comes and goes.
Hey, where are they picking on? Looks like you.
I think we're nearly there.
Okay. I'm watching your screen here on the side. There we go. Nice.
His pirate name is Pun Redbeard. It's...
Yeah. Oh, it's Dark Souls boss.
Into the fog. Ooh.
Looks like we gotta get our feet wet.
Jesus, Leon.
The water I'm worried about.
Oh.
Ah, fuck.
What the
This
hell
is
was
what the
that?
game was all about.
Yep.
Oh, here it is. Shark bait. Shark bait. No one get me Billy Butcherson reference earlier on there too. Hooke, folks. Really nice zombie guys.
Fucking diabolical.
What's in this one?
He's just Billy Butcher, isn't he?
Billy Butcherson, yeah.
No.
They never made another Resident Evil again after this. They just couldn't beat it.
This is the last one.
Pete.
Who's Pete?
Run, Peppy.
Right, we've another wee boosty bit here.
Right, how?
Boosty bit. Next game is called B.O.W.s. Yeah, that's true.
Biohazard is such a cool name.
It's the original Japanese name, but they couldn't do it over here.
Yeah.
Elena, take the high road.
You take the high road and I'll take the low road. I'll meet you in Scotland in the morning.
I'm obviously going to get attacked by shark bait here, aren't I?
Yeah. Well, that's good. Things are attacking me in the tunnel, not the shooting. That's fine. Father!
There's zombies swarming to me.
Chin, what is happening? Welcome on. Jamie can't co-op the old games like in Dino Crisis 2 and no, or Parasite Eve.
Oh, that would be so good. You know how your man makes all those seamless co-op mods for the Souls games?
Yeah.
Only with they could be made for retro games like that. It'd be
Donate how you attach the RE to the village. It was a clever use of the Roman numeral for 8, that's true. Me trying to jump scare a Dean. That one doesn't scare me. There is one, no, I can't remember which one.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic
turning,
things
it's
I've
working.
ever heard.
Lazy. What is
At no
happening?
point
Welcome
Are
in,
these
hands on
folks?
deck.
How was the rest of your stream, buddy?
Response
Oh, I've been grabbed.
Elena!
that can be considered a rational thought.
Whoa.
Everyone in this
I've got stolen.
is now dumb.
Help me.
Having listened to it.
Help me.
Legit a
I
shark.
award you no points, and may God have mercy on your
I say we get out of the water. Oh, I'm still in the water.
Okay.
Oh, we're split up again.
Just fine, but
Elena! Okay?
I'm not.
Way over here now. I'll cover you as much as I can. Keep moving forward.
Right. Do my best.
I have to open a thing for you.
Yep, it's nearly open. Keep going.
Shoot that guy. Shoot him.
Okay, Leon, go!
Sorry, hold on. There's a boat beside me.
Sorry, I got him.
Make it through. Can you open it from your side?
Hold on,
Yep,
let
I
me
have it
check.
over here for cutscene to fake off, so I can do it.
Look at this graph. Gluten-free ones are gettable. What's this? Pretzels? Alright, okay.
Can you get through now?
Well, I need to check to see if
Yeah,
I've helped.
good.
I don't. Shit. I'm low on health. Oh, fuck.
More blades, 3, 2.
Yeah. I got impaled.
You just got impaled. Alright.
I thought I could squeeze to the side. Apparently not.
Couldn't be the single boss. My build was trash and my skill issue was palpable.
Elena!
That's
You
for the
okay?
best of us.
Skillish.
I'm way over here now.
Keep moving forward.
Got your back.
For fuck's sake.
Okay, Leon.
The pretzels,
go.
because they're not bread.
Leon, I can't get through. Can you open it from your side?
Hold on, let me check.
That made me snort. That should be a thing, actually. Rod does come out with some
Ready?
pieces.
What's happening?
I don't have
There he is. Ready? What is happening, sir?
Can you get through now?
Yeah.
Oh, for fuck's sake, I didn't slide quick enough.
You lost the head?
Yep. What's she shouting for? I have no head, I'm not going to hear it.
You shoot back. Wah! In the kitchen.
Head's rolling away. I lost my head.
Helena, are you okay?
Third time's the charm.
Fine. I'm way over here now.
Because they get eaten over here.
I'll cover you as much as I can. Just keep moving
Good
forward.
job, the leader, Richard.
I'm trying to.
There we go. Right, this is the one. It's actually been going
Okay,
alright.
Leon, go.
How's that? I need to figure out how
Leon, I
to.
can't get through.
Like,
Can you open it from your side?
jump.
Hold on, let me check.
Yeah, Leyoric has had to be on keyboard and mouse. Because his controller stopped working for some reason.
I couldn't stop working, it just changed all the controls.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm just going to crawl through here instead. Oh, I also have spikes.
I wonder if I could slide through. Or do we have to stop them somehow?
No way we're getting through that.
No, you do slide through. I slid through
No.
myself.
Maybe there's a way
Did
to
you
stop
actually?
it.
Yeah.
Did you slide
Oh,
through
no,
them?
spikes? No, I don't know.
It's, Leon just said there's no way we're getting through it. There must be somewhere to stop the trap them.
Everything
may have-
here is activated by cranks.
Oh,
We kill whoever's turning them. Goodbye, sweeties.
of course I have to reload. Just like the shot.
You must have got the guy.
Yep. Oh, I must not crank
Guess
this
what?
one, maybe.
There's no crank here.
Okay.
We're gonna look
Must
for
be
it.
on my side.
Look for it. There's no guarantee it's even in here.
True. But what the hell else are we gonna do?
Where am I look for? Oh,
I have a crank here.
okay, perfect.
Crank it!
Oh, so you took the one that my specs are back on?
Have they? Oh, hold on.
Yep. I sure hope that you intensely getting up early on this Friday so I can stream the reason behind just for you.
Right, so what am I supposed to be doing with this crank over here?
I need it up here where I am. Oh, it's in here. Not
If I do the crank up here, it just does the spikes. Doesn't.
Yeah. Unless I can take one from somewhere. Ooh, he's going in there.
Do you want me to do the spikes? You're too kind, I can't wait. What time is that for me?
Tons
What's
of
this? Actually getting ready for this Friday so I can stream at a reasonable hour just for you. Ah, well done, Sammy. Nice one. Sammy,
Enemies are
being a
never
legend.
ending. That sounds like it's pop. Right, I don't know, maybe I have to go back and like take a crank from somewhere else or something.
I have a box here. I don't know if I'm supposed to be pushing it or what.
And maybe you can get up to me or something like that. Check, why did he mute his for?
Doesn't give me anything else to do. And I can't get to the other side at all. Like 4 or 5 PM your time.
Ah, oh, come on. How many times I shot him a shotgun? Die would you? There we go. Feck
Do you want me? Will I do this thing?
What then?
Like, this is here. This is here for a reason, though.
but
Shoot
that's the
that
one I
red
shot.
jewel. Can you shoot the red jewel? Well, I'll try that.
What red jewel?
Beside me.
On the gates?
No.
No, they're like a core-coded thing. See the Tedician? Like the mechanism?
Yeah.
I think. Actually, that one you're doing there, that's the spikes.
Yeah.
Over there. So I'm assuming I have to come back and take a lever from somewhere or something. Never got it.
Got him in the waist, 2 bullets. Ian, no! Good shoot.
Oh, I got a crank somehow.
Crank that.
Okay. A random enemy had it. It's okay. Of course you come alive. Feck off, would you? Nice crawl on the bear. Right, your gate's opening over there. The other side.
That's me 3.
Nice. I think you should be able to return the favour for me now, probably. Yep, there's a crank right there. Nice.
Everybody will probably get up as soon as I start this.
Got him to waste 2 bolts. Damn.
Exactly what was going to happen. Let's go! It's turbo time.
Turbo time. There we go.
Looks like we're finally making it out of here.
Come
I
on,
don't speak too
let's
soon.
keep moving. I'm sick of these catacombs.
Lever each.
I love the way it keeps changing my button to do things. It keeps going from space to the V.
That's so funny.
Just randomly. Just like, I'm going to change it about. Are we dead?
Thanks to the job. I don't know. Oh, big statue.
That boy's stoned.
Welcome to the center of the earth.
This is pretty cool looking.
It is.
Exit from the cave. I love how we're going further down, and that's where Deborah fell to. Deborah's definitely alive.
Yeah, we didn't see her getting impaled by something or...
That spit does a lot of damage.
That's what she said.
Oh, assault rifle. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Good.
Hey, boy.
Well, that was kind of light, and I just shot it.
What time you keep on going to tonight, man? Queen Bee!
I was just
Welcome
about to
on!
Same thing to you. Queen, what is happening? Good to see you.
Queen Bee's playing the Golden Sun at the moment. A game I'd never really heard about, but looks class.
Oh, I've seen a few folks stream it now. Love everything I've seen. Yep, nice. Finally made it.
I finally made it. Look how far we've come. Now, baby.
I always laugh
I
at
don't
that.
think
You use the command towards the very end of Leyoric streams. Usually when I'm just watching the mod, I always
promise you.
Like, damn it.
We're not going to let Simmons get away with all this.
Good. I won't rest until he's paid for what he did to Deborah.
That does not look very safe. Yeah, that helped. But this place is dark and creepy.
It's Resident Evil. It's not Sunny Sunshine Farm. Stuck in your head now.
Yep. Watch him.
Is it Shania Twain?
Shania Twain, yeah. Who is playing 3 Arena, I think, in Dublin this year. Seen the ad for it yesterday when I was
there. Played here.
No, I was actually using it. Becky Legolas.
How do you feel about time traveling Pokemon game? You know, Pokemon, Professor Ocarina of Time. Jesus Christ, bro.
Rod. Always one of the screaming.
He is. Keep me distance from him.
Couple people.
Oh, screaming. Get back.
Yeah. Not just far enough back. Ooh, loot. Wind shooter? There we go. Right, keep going. Oh shit! Oh shit, that's right.
Leon!
Actually, funnily enough, one of the Pokemon movies legit had time travel, Professor Oak. Really? Got it? Jesus.
No way.
Careful. I can't
Oops,
always
sorry.
be there to
That's a
save you.
beast. Pokemon.
This makes me think of... Isn't it Chin Pokemon that South Park uses? Or something like
Yes,
that?
I think so.
Pokemon? I always remember from the Stick of Truth.
Fuck, what was that?
He's carrying dynamite.
That boy wanted to axe or something.
Right, go, go, go.
It
Oh
says I
shit, there's
can't
a big
pick
guy.
up anything else.
Oh, your arm thermos before. Check for health items and stuff.
Back up, pal. You've had enough to eat.
Big house.
Oh, the big guy's coming. I ran around him.
I got him with him. Incinerated the
That's
grenade.
not working. Second.
Oh, he's looking to come over, but he can't.
Can you get up here where he came from? Up here where we need to go, isn't it?
Oh.
Right? Yeah, I think so. You're backwards there.
I'm
That's
just
my
fighting your
favourite
man.
Need the platinum sticker trip. Fantastic game, man. It is. Loved it.
I need to figure out how to pick up health. I need to drop something, I think.
So if you can you combine health items in your menu there?
No, I can't. I have no more to combine.
Ah, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Fuck, I'm getting shot. Oh, this buddy boy. Fuck it. Fuck it. We run. We've one health.
No. Here, do I have a hit spray? No, no. Alright. Somebody behind me. Fuck off. I swear the mechanic of enemies grabbing me from the ground winds me up something fierce.
Yeah. I'm just over here exploring by myself. Whee!
There it goes again. That is my least favorite part of this game. Is that mechanic?
You did?
No, no, no. Just dealing with bullshit. If he grabs me again, I'll smash something. That's just me right on. Right, there we go. Which way did I come? Did I come down that way?
We're going this way with the big guy.
Ah, okay. Oh, is that not weird? He ran down from up here.
No, I killed the last one.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Right. Hold on. I need to move. There's people behind me. Annoyingly. Oh.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
He's shaking the bridge. And I'm blocked onto the bridge. Right.
I put explosives on the bridge and I couldn't set it off because I kept shaking it. Son of a bitch.
Why is it forcing my camera? Oh, to throw you across here.
What are you? Okay.
Yeah.
Parkour!
Shit.
Oh shit! It's Lord of the Rings all over again.
Ah, so it is.
Leon! I need your help!
Why am I singing Jurassic Park? Why am I singing Jurassic
What am I meant to do? What am I meant to do?
You shoot them?
Oh, I didn't see that.
Right there, I'm up now.
Okay. Good job.
Nicely done.
I have a car named Dragon These. I know where you're going with that. Oh.
Jump already! Shut the hell up!
I got the screamer on the way at least. There's a big dude there. Oh no.
These guys never go down easy.
I got him in my there. Fuck off.
Reloading. Alright.
I'm good.
Very dark. I might install a reshade for the next stream, to be honest.
Yeah. It's not as bad for me. It still is dark, but seems to be a bit more palatable. Palatable?
Yep.
I'll put you involved into the next Pokemon.
Right. You've got ways to go yet, actually.
Is that just stuck in your head, man?
It is. I'm going to be singing it for ages. If Dev started to shoot Leyoric instead, the temptation would have been too much. Unfortunately, I can't hurt him.
Oh, Jesus Christ, McCanns. Fucking hell.
That knock is so creepy.
It is. Do you know the reason I know it's not real is because the dog doesn't go mental?
There we go.
The elaborate bridge system. Someone really thought this place through.
Right. Which means there's gotta be a way out.
Oh.
Oh, for fuck's sake, they're on my side too.
Oh. Yeah,
you may have to shoot the ones on my side.
See him yet. Clear so far. Nice. There we go.
Oh, for fuck's sake. You jumpy bastards. Jesus Christ. You dead? No, I'm not.
Oh, for God's sake. Oh, I need to heal you. Didn't realize you were that hurt. Peak gameplay.
He's running. We're getting there. But they'd stop jumping on me. I know I'm sexy, but Jesus Christ.
My sex is in chat.
Well, that's true.
Rod, you scared the shit out of me. Another one.
And another one. Oh, did they punch a boulder?
Oh. I think we do. Nah.
Keep letting things jump on her. I know. She's too much of a right. That's a problem.
Spear! You hit him with a goddamn spear.
Back off! He's literally torn in half. Oh,
there's
imagine
arcades
Jim.
and everything in this.
Can you imagine Jim Ross in a zombie apocalypse? My God, he's torn in half and still eating
He
me.
had a family. You son of a bitch. Oh, Sputter got
Backlash.
Backlash.
Backlash. At Backlash.
I fell. How'd you get up there?
How'd you get up there? I fell.
At Backlash.
Oh.
Oh.
Backlash.
You're one to talk.
Backlash. At Backlash. At Backlash. Backlash.
Backlash.
Right. Backlash.
Backlash.
What am I meant to do? Oh, I need you to do this as well.
I'm going to work.
I don't want
Fucking
people
hell.
getting too sleepy towards the end of the stream. Good. Thanks, Rob.
Right, I heard somebody. We might have to take care of him.
Okay.
Where is he? He's up there.
Right, back to it.
Ignitus, no worries. You go enjoy. Edge had more to say. On
Apart
this
from today,
day,
not a ball.
I sincerely.
Not a bar, Ignitus. Thank you very much for coming on.
We may have to stop one of us to take care of him. Fuck.
That worked out.
Yeah.
There was 2 enemies on that.
Run, Leon! Everything's falling apart!
Everything's falling apart. Total eclipse of the fart. Turn around.
Where'd you get it? Get up.
Oh, she keeps falling over my one.
Oh, I need your help by a boulder, I think.
I'm a coming.
I'm on my way. Why is it so dark? Because it's a cave. Now, you're watching in Leyoric stream? Leyoric has a reshape. Got it too.
Let's go.
It's just a very dark section. Yeah. Everything's falling apart. 2012. There's
Well,
no way I made that jump in my
well,
animation, but apparently I
we
did.
clearly wrecked the puss.
Dash back.
Water there. Yeah, it's better in your stream. Is it better in Hooke's stream then? My one's worse.
It's better mine. Oh, well, I did turn the game brightness up earlier on in the game because it was so dark and I couldn't even see myself. What was going on? I don't think I know. I can't see.
Water the matter way. End of it.
Here we go.
Slide
End
on.
of the worst thing
Slide
ever. Oh, do we have to interact here with this bullshit? Oh, you mean the shark? Bollocks. Okay. Form stroke. Avoid drowning. Well, that's usually the goal.
That's what I try and do in life. Oh, the section seems like it's going to be shite. Will we wrap it up here?
Aye, we won't I?
Because we've just saved just beforehand.
Aye, sounds good.
It's only discontinuing physical media games. Rod, you're right. Right?
Yeah, I think that's a good spot. I agree.
I think so too.
Right, let me...
Thank you, folks, for
let's see,
everybody coming
Telegram.
on. That was an absolutely brilliant night. I really enjoyed it. That was good crack.
I agree. Was a good night. And we made good progress.
We did. I don't think we did. Oh, we finished one chapter and a bit.
Aye, we did.
Well. We did well.
Let's see. Where are we, actually? Let's have a look.
Chapter
Cheers to stream. Ian, thank you for coming on.
3 point something.
Yeah,
What
we're
night-
definitely on 3 point something.
What night do you want to do this next week? Tuesday or Wednesday?
I'm easy, to be honest. Do you have a preference?
Are you easy? Are you? Are you?
Well,
Are you?
for the
Are
right
you?
man, you know, for the right man. Like, we can do
Hey.
Tuesday if you want to do your RE2.
Yeah, I'm grand either way.
Aye.
Like, what do you think
That's
for
fine by me.
what do you think for a raid target? What are you thinking?
Oh, I haven't even looked yet, actually. Hold on. Let's have a nosy. Oh, the game stayed in my mouse here. Let me close it. There we go. Right, raid target. Have you any in mind?
Just having a wee look here. I was looking to see if
Right.
anybody playing Resident Evil 6, but
Yeah, Johnny Beard is playing Resi 5 right now.
yeah, Uncle Flange is playing.
Excuse those ads.
Observing and Julian. Wild Paw's doing Witcher 2. Wild Paw's cool.
Wild Paw is cool. We're
I
Wild
read
Paw
Wild
could
Paw?
do a shout, you know?
Yeah.
Aye.
Witcher
I've not
2's
rated
good.
Wild Paw before.
Neither have I.
And
I've
I've not
called on
seen
their
the Witcher 2
streams.
before, actually.
It's really
Yep.
sound. Really sound.
Yeah.
So I'm going to set
I
up the
agree.
raid now, folks. We're going to see.
You doing your game first?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So, Leyoric will be back tomorrow night and Thursday night. Thursday night and Saturday night. I will be back on Sunday, folks, for the rest of this week. Our schedule's now in our Discord, by the way.
Yep, that's right. We're going to do that every week now.
Yep. So you see both of our schedules in the one place, which would be nice.
So I am going to do my boss fight. Actually, I don't know. Did you beat the boss? I can't even remember if you did it.
I don't know.
So raid messages will pop up. Top one for followers, bottom one for subs.
We combined it last week. We should set up a combined message going forward, you know.
Ooh, boss was not beat.
Fixed.
Better luck tomorrow night. Better luck tomorrow night. So
have you started your raid?
I'm starting it now.
Sweet, the same. Folks, thank you kindly. Much appreciated. Thank you for the follow, like Dark, especially earlier on for the follow. Thank you very much. May for the bits, Akira for the streak, Speds for the sub as well, you fucking legend. All the check-ins and the streaks as well. Thank you.
Exactly.
Much
And
appreciated.
I will see you folks tomorrow night. Chat to you later. Bye-bye.
See you tomorrow. All the best. Goodbye.